James Richardson, Paul Jackson,
Here.
Gary Lambert,
Present.
Carrie Lee,
Here.
Sue Baker,
Here.
Gregory McKay,
Here.
and Will Geddes.
For the Attorney General's office here.
Sir, you have a quorum.
Thank you very much. He is running late too. All righty. I'm getting scolded already for not turning on my mic. All right. Do we have any public comments? Seeing none, we're going to move on to agenda item number 5. Number 5, meeting minutes. Secretary, do you have the minutes? I believe it's from the November meeting, the December 5th, and which was a committee meeting, and December 12th. Everybody's been supplied with those, correct?
Correct.
We've all seen them? All right, let's deal with the November meeting. Does anybody have any changes, adds, anything? No? Seeing none. The December 5th meeting? December 12th. You are making my job very easy today, gentlemen and lady. All right, I will accept a motion.
Motion to approve. Commissioner Lee.
Thank you, Commissioner Lee. Is there a second?
Commissioner Elmore will second.
All right, any discussion? Without further ado, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 All opposed? All right, that is approved unanimously. Item number 6, for discussion only, DMV report. Mr. McDonald, please come front and center. Thank you, sir. Please state your name for the record. Or names, I'm sorry.
Certainly. Good morning, Chairman Jackson, member of the committee. My name is Sean McDonald. I'm the administrator over the Central Services and Records Division at the Department of Motor Vehicles. With me is Doreen Rigsby, Manager 2 for Central Services.
All right, sir. Would you like to go ahead with your report?
Certainly. Okay, as of yesterday, total registrations processed by the department were 35,817 since go live on July 1st, 2012. Of that 35,817, 3,812 are renewals, so roughly 11% so far this year. And 213 were duplicates, just to throw a number there for you. The total titles that we have processed since go live is 11,650. And presently, our unit is maintaining a one-day turnaround. So as we get it within one day, we mail everything back. I can also provide you with revenue if you would like.
Please.
Of course, we do our revenue projections bi-monthly. So the close of today, we would have the new ones, but I can give you as of January 15th. As of January 15th, 2014, this fiscal year to date, the department has collected on behalf of the commission $405,280.
And how much is in the pipeline? How much we should be getting back to the 15th?
I imagine the 15th is probably, that, I don't know if that's come through yet or
This
not.
Commissioner Cox, that has come through.
Okay.
Okay.
Excellent, excellent. And of course, the new numbers will be in at the close of business today, so there would be another check forthcoming.
And how much was the, maybe,
The check, I'm sorry, what was the question?
how much was the check for we received for the 15th?
$15,453.
That's considerably lower than the normal checks, is that correct, sir?
Could you please repeat that number?
$15,453. Yes, at the end of last year, typically we were receiving about $50,000 a month. So far in January, it's 29,000, let's say.
Okay. Ms. McDonald, I'd heard there was some issue with renewals. There was a slowdown in renewals.
Doreen Rigsby, for the record. We have not had a lot of renewals. As Sean had stated earlier, it's about 11% of what was originally registered since the program went live.
Okay, terrific. Any thoughts on why the renewals? I mean, and again, I understand that's not your bailiwick or department, but I mean, just if you had any complaints or anything that came up.
I can probably answer the first part of that, and I might defer to Doreen on the second part. The one thing I would say with the renewals is, obviously with that first year, it wasn't a mandated compliance thing. So I think initially we saw a bit of a spike towards the end of last fiscal year when people were starting to register. So in short, it was kind of slow. People didn't automatically out of the gate start registering their OHVs until the end of the first fiscal year. So I imagine these renewal percentages, and I've been kind of tracking that as the renewal percentages relative to total registrations, and I have seen that number steadily climb. Again, we're only about 11% right now, but it wasn't that long ago that we were only at 6%. So as we get closer to the end of this current fiscal year, I imagine we'll start seeing a spike, because obviously the last several months of any given year is when I think we'll see a bubble of people renewing from the first go-round.
Oh, terrific. I will look to the commission. Does anybody have any questions of Mr. McDonald? I'm seeing none. Mr. McDonald, can you give us I know that you were kind enough to send us all an email on the intentions of the DMV, your boss, obviously. Can you give us any kind of update on that?
Certainly. As the memorandum that I had sent out, the department has put forth a proposal to look at basically trying to do an enterprise business fund type model as far as the registrations or as far as revenues are concerned with the program. This would take collective revenues from both titles and from registrations, and would basically give us enough to typical business model, total revenue minus its expenses. Once the expenses were paid, the difference would be distributed. And again, this is a collective across all spectrums. So it would include title revenue, which right now the department maintains 100%. So title revenue as well as registration revenue. We would just keep enough to sustain the program, which we are currently operating with only 3 full-time personnel, cost allocating management, and then the difference would go through. But again, if the commission itself had something that they wanted to entertain, I could certainly take that back to the department.
Thank you. Mr. Lambert, you had a question?
I do. What percentage of the monies do you track what you bring in on title as compared to, and how much your labor is on title as compared to registration and sticker programs? And how are your numbers there look? I mean, is titling paying its own way, or are you spending more than you're bringing in?
Right now, I think, and to maybe help answer that question, we have been watching our title counts, and I will say that our title counts are a little bit higher than we anticipated over the last couple of months, so that's a good sign. However, titling is a one-stop process too, and we imagine that once people title their vehicles, that we may not see, obviously that's a one-time thing. So it's difficult to say. We'll have a complete full year coming up, so we might be able to have a little more of a baseline to make some kind of a determination of what the overall revenues are going to be, because obviously right now for all of us this is a new thing to try to figure out what kind of revenues will be coming in.
So in short, we really don't know what, you don't know whether titling's paying its own way, and you're asking for money from stickers to keep both programs stable, or?
Well, it would be, right now titling is helping the program. Again, we look at it from a collective, so we have the money from the titles, we have the percentage from the decals. We just want to make sure the program remains solvent so that we can pay our expenses. And
I believe I understand that. I was just trying to see where the overages compared to the income come from, and we'll get into it later. Thank you very much.
certainly.
Mr. Romo, did you have a question? I'm sorry. Just a quick housekeeping. Please remind everybody to turn their phones off. I had mine on, so I would know that I ask everybody to turn them off. So please turn your cell phones off or put them on vibrate. I would sort of say that I understand the issue that DMV is going through, the shortage of money. There are some alternatives which are a little bit more palatable. I'm not speaking on behalf of Paul Jackson, not the commission, because we have not discussed or taken a vote. But there are some alternatives that are more palatable. And I would encourage your boss basically to, if he has another alternative, to come up with it, or we'll be happy to meet with him, a delegation from the commission, made up of probably myself, Mr. Lambert, and somebody else from the commission. We'll be happy to meet with him and discuss any alternatives. We are going to schedule this for discussion, possible action, in our March meeting, and to see if, we have several alternatives. We can put forward our own bill, which may change things completely. We can come up with some alternatives that we can offer to DMV, or we can discuss and put something together with DMV that everybody can agree on, and then go as a united front to the Assembly or the Senate, which obviously is preferable to all of us. So, are there any further questions from anybody? I'm sorry, Sheriff Lee, go ahead, sir.
Just a quick question. You say you have 3 full-time employees. Is that all they do is the OHV, or do they do other things when the OHV stuff slows down? Or are they full-time OHV?
This is Doreen Rigsby for the record. They're only OHV. They're categorized, and that's all the work they do, but they do their own work. They do their own sorting of the mail, stamping it in. They do the registrations, the title. They scan the work after it's finished. They do any correspondence if the paperwork is incorrect or they need additional information. So they are their own self-sufficient unit, and there's no one else that helps them, and they don't go to any other areas.
Thank you.
Do we have anything else? Okay, one sort of small point. You actually get copies of all of the emails, but I have noticed there's been sort of a slight increase in people who I can only describe as frustrated with the system. Again, I mean, I don't get any follow-ups on those, so I really don't know. But there have been some situations where people have been frustrated by the situation. So I would take note of that. We are seeing some of those things happen. And as we had discussed on the phone last week, I'll make sure that you get all copies of anything. But a lot of it's some people basically coming up to me and saying, my ATV is 45 miles away from Vegas, and I can't get the VIN check done. Things like that. So, I mean, we are sort of dealing with those situations, so we'll try and deal with them one-on-one, obviously. Are there anything else from the commission?
Paul,
oh, go ahead. Yes, ma'am.
If I can speak just a minute. I did bring extra business cards because on the agenda, it kind of worried me a little that you were saying there was some complaints.
Right.
The ones that we deal with are particularly with the titles or the registration. Anything that goes about the grant, we forward on, and we've seen an increase on the grant concerns. But we didn't see anything on inspections and that, but I am going to I'm going to hand out my business cards to each of you. If you get those complaints, you're welcome to give them to the customer. As the manager, I know how they work, so I can go out, find out what's going on, and together we can find out what's going on with the inspections.
I think that's a
So
terrific
that-
idea.
Because taking care of it after the fact doesn't help anybody get it resolved.
And
I think it's
certainly,
a terrific idea. Thank you.
and if you don't mind, I too want to just echo Doreen's sentiments. If anything does get to the commission or any concerns, by all means, please let us know, because we would like to have an opportunity to fix those ahead of time. And if there's any hiccups in the process, we want to make it right. So by all means, let us know.
Sheriff Lee?
Yeah, I'd kind of like to echo the chairman's remarks. I've also had several complaints, DMV related, and I know VIN inspections are a major difficulty. Coming from the law enforcement side, that has been one of the most difficult things. If we can't get VIN inspections done, we can't get them registered. Some people don't have trailers to take them to, to dealers. Some law enforcement entities are too busy. So VIN inspections are a major problem. One of my employees sent their application in 3 separate times, all with different issues each time. We'd get one issue resolved and then go back and, so I know there's been a lot of back and forth. This was initially, and I think maybe things have probably streamlined a little better, but initially 3 go-arounds it took. I know some people are getting frustrated, so they're just throwing up their hands and saying, well, I guess if I get a ticket, I get a ticket. I don't want that to happen, because the program's not going to succeed if we don't have that working. So I'd love to have one of your cards. If we can make that happen, that'd be great, and maybe we can solve them. I know one of the things, and maybe you can answer, a couple of people told me on older ATVs that they have had for years, DMV was not issuing them titles, and said you don't get a title till it transfers to the next owner. Do you know what that would mean?
I can speak for that. Doreen Rigsby, for the record. If we don't show chain of ownership to an individual that has that vehicle, then we ask them to do attempt to notifies. We have a statement of fact which can get them the title. But if there's no ownership, and we do hear that quite a few times as well, I bought this from Bob Smith that bought it from John Riley, so there's no chain of ownership. We'll ask them to go back to the owner they knew had the paperwork, or attempt to notify, and then we can get them a title. But if that chain's missing, it does become a little bit more complicated to get ownership documents. We do register, but we won't do the ownership until the chain of command, or chain of
Chain of
ownership.
custody, okay. And I know that's a big issue, because there's a lot of ATVs out there that were bought online or from your neighbor, and you move. Personally, I can tell you myself, that's been the case, and I would have not even the foggiest idea where to go look. And so that's what they're telling me is, well, they got it registered, they got their sticker, they got everything, but they don't get a title because it has to change into the next ownership, or they have to sell to somebody else, then all of a sudden you establish a chain. But as far as the law enforcement side of this, I hope that, to me, titling and that being able to track that vehicle through, for the law enforcement side of it is super, super important. So I hope we're trying to get as many titles as we can. That's a concern. That's a concern. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Elmo, you had a question?
Yeah, this is Commissioner Elmer. I'm trying to understand 3 full-time employees handling OHV. Can you give us a number, I guess, on the average right now, given it's a slower renewal period, on how many of these transactions we're seeing a day? I just did the math. If you take all the transactions, registration, titles, renewals, duplicates, divided by 180 coming from June or July 1st to now, it comes out to about 75 per person for those 3 employees a day, but that's obviously skewed because it doesn't include the time period prior to July 1st. But do you have any idea as to how many they're handling a day right now?
You know, I didn't bring that, Doreen Rigsby for the record, I didn't bring that information with me, but we do collect it. In addition to typing the registrations, they may do the paperwork for the chain of ownership to do the titles. So they do process registration, titles, mail, scanning. So it's not just sitting typing just one thing, because the whole program runs off those three.
Right. I guess I'm just trying to understand their daily workload, or the number of transactions they're receiving, new transactions they're receiving in a day, in relation to having 3 full-time employees.
And what we've done with those three, and we've tried it with less, and then we tried it with a little bit more there at the end of that last fiscal year when we got all the big bubble that we had a few days backlogged. But we were able to go back down to 2, but 3 is the minimum that we've been able to run off of. But I can show you that information later on. I know that we pulled it apart to try to figure out how we're going to fund this after we continue to get only 15%. So we do have it. We've researched it. So.
And if I could also just add to that a little bit, excuse me, we'd have to base it too off the fact we have, I want to say 250 working days out of the year instead of, because obviously a standard work day, work week, and about 7 hours of true processing time. And, that factors in for holidays and stuff. But we'd be happy to get you those numbers, certainly.
Great, thank you.
You bet.
All right, and we're going to try and move along here. One last question from Mr. Lambert. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Joe will be next, yes.
Commissioner Giroux, for the record, I have one quick follow-up on Commissioner Lee's question on the titling. And what we've seen is we have some customers that have had, say, a quad or dirt bike for a long time, and now they're attempting to sell it, which in the state, it's easy, but we're so close to the border, anyone going into California, being that California is a title registration state, that's where we've had some problems. We've been trying at the dealership level to handle it for the people, but I could see their frustration, especially if they have no experience in, titling and, stuff that we've been doing for the last 35 years. But if there was a way that, that we could, somehow simplify it or at least, where you have ownership for a large period of time, whether it be a, simplified statement of facts, I am the true owner, I've owned it for X amount of time. I don't know if there's any way that we can investigate that, just to make it easier for the public to get it done. And I think once we get it in the system, it is easy. And I also want to add, we've had real good success with DMV, so.
Thank you.
And I mean, it's not been easy, but like I say, our titling has been like 99% of our stuff's gotten titled, so been phenomenal. So thank you.
And if I could just respond to it, and thank you very much. And I'm certainly all for trying to streamline the processes that much more. If for any reason it would actually, obviously brings more revenue too, which is, so I'm certainly, we can try to streamline our processes if we have to. In this next session, bring another BDR forth to try to true things up or clean things up a little bit. By all means, I'll do whatever we need to do to make things right.
Terrific. Mr. Lambert, last question.
Commissioner Lambert, for the record, I know that I've made the suggestion before to put the statement of facts document up on your website because it causes way too many phone calls. It would alleviate a great deal of the backlog. Its principles are laid out in revised statute, and I would appreciate that being posted up as it would benefit your revenues and the commission's revenues. It's just food for thought. Thank you.
Okay, did you have a question, Mr. McKay? No? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, all right, moving right along. Ms. McDonald, thank you. I'm going to move along to agenda item number 7 and hand it over to Mr. McDonald, Mr. Cox, who will give us the Treasurer's report, and we will take action on the proposed budgets. Mr. Cox.
Thank you. I passed out to the commissioners a balance sheet and a profit and loss statement for the past year ending December 31st. I'll just pass that. I don't want to go through it line by line, but you can see on the profit and loss statement that our ending balance of July 31st was $403,409.17. And we have received both two checks in January from the Department of Motor Vehicles. The first one was $13,481. The second one, $15,543, as I stated earlier. So that our income is significantly lower going, at the start of the year. All the bills are paid. I do have detailed breakdowns by account if anyone wants to see that during a break or after the meeting. We have very few bills to pay. It's a quick read. So with that, I'd like to move on to the proposed budget. You will see that, as mandated by law, our beginning balance of $403,049.17 is our beginning balance. The proposed budget is broken down in front of you. Basically, $25,152 for admin cost, $77,000 for law enforcement grant expenses, $57,000 for public education grants, $2,067 for event expenses, $241,830, and that's 17 cents for trail grant expenses. So our total grant expenses, $377,897.17, with our admin costs make a balanced budget of $403,049.17.
I will take a motion on the proposed budget.
Commissioner Lambert, I motion we approve the budget.
Second. Is there a second?
Commissioner Jarrell, I'll second that.
Thank you, sir. All right. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Do you want to have discussion?
Oh, I'm sorry. Hey, I apologize. Yes, is there any discussion on the budget? Now, we will be, just so everybody knows, we will be going over the budget again tomorrow as to exactly how much money we've got to spend on each category. So Mr. Cox will keep us well apprised, I'm sure. Is there any other discussion?
Commissioner Jackson, can I ask one question?
Sir.
For clarification? Just curious, does the trails category under grant expenses, is that the catch-all for everything else of all the things that are in NRS 490 that we have to distribute, or we can distribute monies for outside of law enforcement and education? Trails is the designated term for
Correct.
everything? Okay. Thank you.
All right. Seeing no more questions, I will call for the vote. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 All opposed? The motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Cox. And still keeping with Mr. Cox, I apologize. Approval of existing expenses. Mr. Cox.
At the present time, there is no existing expenses.
Well, we have the expenses for, we're sort of doing a pre-approval for what we've got here. If it would be okay with you, Mr. Cox, could I table number 8, and we'll do it late tomorrow, so it gives you a chance to get a copy of all the receipts?
Okay, that's fine.
All right, is that, anybody object to that? Okay, so table number 8 to 17.
I'm sorry, I did misspeak. We do have one existing expense. I think it's for $304 for the public accountants that helped me set up these books.
I'm talking more about the
I know.
cost of the rooms and all of that kind of good stuff.
I understand that,
Yes,
but that's one I forgot.
All right. All right. Seeing no objection, I'm going to go ahead with agenda item number 9, committee reports. We've already heard from the budget. Grants we're pretty much good on. Mr. Elmo, was there anything on outreach?
There is not. The only thing is, I think it would be best in the commission and the purpose if I resigned as chair and we elected somebody else as chair. I'd like to stay on the subcommittee, but it's just come down to time to organize meetings and that.
No problem. I'm going to move that to March's agenda. Please take note, Kathy. We are going to add an agenda item to repopulate the outreach committee.
So that's great. I can stay as chair until the March meeting. We can handle it then.
I'm sorry, Kathy's just catching. You good? I think. Kathy's brand new to us and is still catching up on this, and it is kind of a learning curve. So we're working well. All right, so that's going to be in March's meeting. Law Enforcement Sheriff Lee, does your committee have anything? No. All right, Legislative, which is myself. The legislature is not open right now, and there's nothing going on legislatively for us to talk about. Mapping, Mr. Lambert.
Mapping has made some steps forward with the BLM, but nothing's finalized and there's nothing hard to report today. Thank you.
Terrific, thank you. Executive Search Committee, we're going to revitalize the search committee later on in the agenda and populate it. So I will table that. All right. Unless there's seeing no objection, I'm going to move along to agenda item number 10.
Commissioner Jackson?
Oh, sorry, go ahead. Mr. Roman.
Can I just suggest maybe for that March agenda item, given that we have 2 new members to the commission, maybe we revisit all of the subcommittees and give them an opportunity to get on, or maybe go through each of the subcommittees, find out who's on it, designate that, and give them an opportunity to.
That's a capital idea, sir, and we'll do that. All right, without objection, I'm going to move on to agenda item number 10. Yes, ma'am? I know I do talk fast. I'm from the part of England where we move quickly. So we share that characteristic with another part of the United States, which is also called York. So, all right, are we good? While we're waiting, you're just going to have to put up with me entertaining you. I'm sorry about that, but yeah. All right. Okay. And item number 10, we had made in our proposed regulations at last meeting an item basically about interest disclosures or financial interest disclosures, and there was a couple of questions that come up on it. So I basically rewritten or clarified it as best as I feel possible. This obviously is not written in stone, it's up for discussion. I just wanted to give us something to start with. The basic premise is that if you have any kind of financial interest in any of the projects that are being done, you should not only disclose it, but you shouldn't vote for that project or some other, or whatever other activities that they're on. If you have an interest in a project because, in my case, you're a member of a club, or in Sheriff Lee's case, you're an employee, and have no direct financial, then you should declare your interest, and it will be up to depending on your level of participation, whether or not you voted on that situation. I've made that as clear as mud to everybody? Yep. Yeah, okay, good. Well, I will open it for discussion. Does anybody have any points, interest? And by the way, Mr. Richardson, welcome. I hope your meeting went well. Good. All right, anybody got any questions on this? Does everybody like my language on this? Does anybody object to it? Mr. McKay?
How does the Attorney General's office think about this language in the Ethics Commission?
Oh, wow, now big can of worms. Mr. Geddes?
He wasn't listening.
No, I was listening.
There's your button, right at the bottom.
Hi, Will Geddes, the Attorney General's office. The big perspective, as the chair has mentioned, covers two areas. Number one, disclosure, disclosure, disclosure. And number two, in a position where you are potentially able to be involved in voting, to abstain. The ultimate decision would be obviously by a court in a battle over whether something was ethical. But you do have recourse. If you wanted to get an opinion, you could request an ethics opinion from the Ethics Commission. The statutes that I would refer you to is NRS Chapter 281A. It governs ethics in government, and it defines pecuniary interest at 281A.139, and it's very short. It says, pecuniary interest means any beneficial or detrimental interest in a matter that consists of or is measured in money, or is otherwise related to money, including without limitation anything of economic value, and payments or other money which a person is owed or otherwise entitled to by virtue of any statute, regulation, code, ordinance, or contract or other agreement. So it's reasonable to argue that grants and application of grants involve money, and as the chair has indicated, if you stand to the key phrase here is if you have a significant pecuniary interest in a grant, such as if the grant is coming to you off duty to go around and erect signage, then an argument might be made that you are directly, you have a direct pecuniary interest, and so it's always a good idea not only to avoid a conflict, but ethics is concerned with avoiding the appearance of a conflict, the appearance of impropriety. So it's always wise to remove all doubt, to disclose, 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 and to remove yourself from the voting process. But I would refer you to 281A.420 if you have further questions, and also 281A.430. And then with respect to getting opinions from the Ethics Commission, 281A.440, the last thing you want to do is get involved or embroiled in an ethics dispute or controversy. So as the chair has indicated, a safe way to go would be to disclose, 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 and to abstain from voting where you have a direct pecuniary interest. And interpretations of specific fact pattern, good advice would be to go to the Ethics Commission. They will take your fact pattern into consideration, and they will issue an opinion, I believe, within 45 days. And so that would be, you asked what the Attorney General's thoughts would be. I would point out that everything I'm saying here is my own personal opinion as an attorney. I am not speaking on behalf of the Attorney General's office in that I'm not giving an Attorney General's opinion, or am I speaking for anyone at the Attorney General's office other than myself? Thank you.
All righty, do we have any other questions? Wow. Okay, go ahead, Ms. Cox.
So this is Commissioner Cox, so then is this the point that you would like us to disclose?
No, we're going to do the disclosures right before we do the voting. The way the language I've written right now, one of the things that's going on, especially for the new members, and I'll sort of let you in on this, we have formed a committee, and there is a committee that is putting together our regulations. They will do the final language, so we're working with proposed regulations right now, and which we're, and obviously any regulations that we do will have to be approved and vetted by LCB. So again, that's one of the reasons we're working with proposed regulations right now. The language that I've put into number 10 is language that I expect something similar to be in our regulations. But basically, it's up to the individual commissioner to control their own ethics and what they feel is appropriate. But basically, I've put in there that if you have a financial interest, and again, as a commissioner, you're the one that has to decide, yes, I have a financial interest. And it comes back on you to do that. If you have a financial interest, you can't vote or advocate for a particular a particular thing. If you don't have a financial interest, then you certainly can advocate for them because, for example, if you're a member of a club or you're an organization and you really think they're doing great work, then as a commissioner you should be able to say that. So the only issue would be the financial. And again, I've got this language. If we agree upon this language, it would rule us during the next 24 hours and then would go to our committee to be rewritten or made proper, and then go to LCB before it goes into regulation and basically is cast in stone at that point. I see a couple of puzzled looks. Has anybody got any questions of me? Yes, Mr. Richardson.
Commissioner Richardson.
Commissioner Richardson.
You always have the opportunity to abstain from the vote or the approval of the
Absolutely.
application.
Yes, absolutely.
So, I mean, that's common sense.
Right.
Did I miss something?
No, we're just defining the difference between financial interest and basically what this does. Financial creates a Chinese wall between financial interest and common interest. So, for example, there's a motorcycle project that's being done, and you say, I'm really excited about that. It's a great trail. I represent motorcyclists. And it comes to talking about this tomorrow, you could say excitedly, yes, I love this. It's a great idea. Oh, by the way, I am a member of the club. So you've declared it. We know it. But you have absolutely no financial interest or any financial gain or profit in any way. Then this allows you to advocate for and say, yeah, this is a great idea. And you can abstain from voting if you feel that that's appropriate. But again, it's up to your own individual conscience. Mr. Lambert, I know you've been waiting to speak to this issue.
So it's my understanding that I'm going to just make it clear that I have an interest and I'm on the board of one of the grantee proposals. So I would be able to grade the grant, I would not be able to vote the grant, and I'd be able to advocate for the grant, but no further actions. Is that true?
If you have no financial interest,
You could vote.
It's completely up to you whether or not you vote.
Okay, but I may have an interest and may not want to vote, but I can still give the presentation to the commission.
Absolutely, yes.
That's all I was making
I think
sure.
that's not a
I don't know how I'd
But
fix
again,
that.
I can't give legal opinions because it's fine.
Just want to comment
sir.
on that. I would just say that there might potentially be a problem, and I will cite you the statute. The 281A 430 says that you can't take, I'll just read it to you, except as otherwise provided in this section 281A 530 and 332 800, a public officer or employee shall not bid or enter into a contract between a governmental agency and any business entity in which the public officer or employee has any significant pecuniary interest. But then subsection 2 is interesting. It says, a member of any board, commission, or similar body who is engaged in the profession, occupation, or business regulated by such board, commission, or body may, in the ordinary course of his or her business, bid or enter into a contract with any governmental agency except the board, commission, or body on which he or she is a member. That would be you here. If the member has not taken part in the developing the contract plans or specification, and the member will not personally be involved in opening, considering, or accepting offers. So when you stated earlier that it'd be okay for you to vote or to grade them, I would caution against that idea simply because grading can lead to an award, and that specifies involvement. But ultimately, again, these are going to be decisions you'll have to make. And if this becomes an issue more pronounced in the future, you can always get an exact opinion from the Ethics Commission. But the safest way to go would be not to take any involvement in grading it, being involved in those procedures if you believe you have a direct pecuniary interest.
So I can go through the
I'm
calisthenics.
sorry, a significant pecuniary interest. Thank you.
I understand. I wasn't necessarily planning.
Name for the record.
Name for the record, Commissioner Lambert. I believe that I was just considering grading it as a document and not handing the grading into the commission, so that would be fine.
Well,
I mean, it's a private document. It's not a graded document if I don't turn it into the commission.
The other language which is instructive here. It talks about this. 281A420 and 281A430, they talk about involvement.
Okay.
And so involvement is defined broadly, so just keep that in
I'll
mind.
not grade it, and that'll make it easy.
Well, it says this is the disclosure requirement. You can't approve, disapprove, vote, abstain from voting, or otherwise act on a matter unless you make the disclosure. So you're correct to make the disclosure at the very least, and then if your gut tells you not to vote on it.
Go wherever I need to go. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Is there any further discussion on this? Go ahead, Mr. Drum. Commissioner Drum.
Commissioner Giroux, for the record, I guess I'm just, with the way you read that, being that I'm the dealer appointee for the commission, virtually everything could financially impact me if it's, if it has anything to do with off-road and vehicles, being that I have two stores, in this. And I just think it's kind of unfair. It almost makes me recluse myself from every vote.
The key is direct pecuniary interest, and I think that what you're describing here would be an excellent question to give to the Ethics Commission, because the Ethics Commission will be able to look at your specific facts and be very clear about it. So that would be my recommendation, because this issue isn't going to go away for you. It sounds like this is going to be looming for quite some time. So 45 days is not that long to wait to get a response from them, and that would, you want to be on safe ground. That's the big thing.
Okay, and I don't believe the governor would have appointed me just to sit here and not be able to, put any of my votes toward anything. So
If we're talking about the awarding of grants and money, that's specifically, if you're talking in the general sense, just simply voting from day to day, I would tend to think that that's not what's at issue here.
all right, it just seems like the grants are probably the most important part of what we're going to be doing.
Could I, Paul Jackson, Mr. Geddes, to Mike's situation, if a bid, if there are 10 dealers and the people buying the ATV, we approve an ATV for a police department, and they go out and they get the best price, if they don't have a quote from Mr. Giroux until after we've already given them the bid, and there's no indication from us in any way, shape, or form as to which dealer they have to buy from, then wouldn't it be ethical for him to vote?
I think your question deals with situations where people are subjecting themselves to the open bidding process, and there is a part of the statute that talks about that. So it wouldn't be unreasonable to guess, and this is just a guess, that the Ethics Commission might come back and say something along the lines of, if this is more indirect, this isn't a bid to give you, your store, money, but it's a bid or a grant that would give some third-party money, and they might, through the open bidding process, come to your store. If I were a betting man, I would guess that the Ethics Commission might say that that's less of a concern. And I don't know if that answers your question. I think the indirectness helps.
Okay, because I was going to say, we deal with Douglas County, we deal with Carson City, Washoe County. We have contracts with basically everyone, and I see they're applying, for grant money. So, in other words, I don't think it's, to blanket it out. It makes it to where, it could indirectly affect me financially. So
I can wrap this up by simply saying, at some point in the large abstract, everything is probably arguably connected financially. The perspective that's helpful to have in this is it's the public's interest in wanting to be assured that there is transparency and fairness in government interactions with the community. And so, I think the Ethics Commission can help a lot here, and we can spell it out for them. Thanks.
I would, this is Paul Jackson, Chair. If there were any commissioners who have specific concerns about their particular situation, I would strongly suggest that when we take a break, have a quick word with Mr. Geddes. If we have to phrase motions or adjust the way grant money is issued to avoid these situations, i.e., we say to somebody, yes, we'll give you X amount of money for an ATV, but you've got to put it out to bid, and the lowest bidder wins. We can do some of those things to extricate ourselves from this tangled web. So we can kind of do that. But again, if you have any personal concerns, I would take them to Mr. Geddes and then, you know, go through them. He can advise you personally, though he is not your personal attorney. He is the board's, commission's attorney, and will be working for the best interests of the commission in this circumstance, which will be coincide with yours. Am I right? Yeah?
We'll see.
Clear,
All right, I stumped an attorney. All right, so, all right, so let's kind of extricate ourselves from this. Are we at this point agreed to live with the language in number 10? And if we are, I'll entertain a motion.
I want to make a comment.
Yeah, of course, yes.
I have a concern,
Your name for the record, please, Ms. Baker.
Commissioner Baker. I have a concern with us taking a formal action on an interpretation of the ethics. So I think if it was just a general discussion to help advise people here, I'm fine with that. But if we're going to go further and actually interpret part of it and take a vote on our interpretation of it, I have a concern with that. I think we should just leave it as a general discussion, that everybody is the responsibility of themselves to understand the code that they agreed to, and that they're going to get their counsel and advice and make their own mind up. And I don't think we should, I'm not comfortable interpreting it and taking a formal action that this is our interpretation and voting on it.
All right, terrific point. Is there any more Sheriff Lee? Commissioner Lee, go ahead, please.
Yeah, Commissioner Lee, I just say that I agree with Commissioner Baker. I think that's more the way we should go, and we're going to follow Nevada revised statute.
Okay.
I mean, it's already spelled out in Nevada revised statute. We're going to follow it. The members are all clear, and if we, well, hopefully clear, and I think that we should disclose it when those grants come up and we're involved in them. We should disclose that. So I agree. I think that's what we should
I'm actually
say.
planning to have a period, even though it's not agendized, I can still do it under the grants, where we can go through disclosures and everybody can disclose exactly where they're going. Is there any more comments on this? I'm informally going to look around to see if anybody disagrees with Commissioner Baker. I don't think there's any. All right, so we're going to go ahead and take no action on number 10. Agenda item 11. Agenda item 11 is a proposal from Commissioner Lee. Commissioner Lee, you have the table. You have the mic.
Well, this is just something that we've discussed almost every commission meeting or several commission meetings. I don't know that it'll be as big an issue this time around, since we don't have a lot of grant monies. We've already said that there could be a percentage of the grant monies for administration. I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal, as big a deal this year, but there's some requests there in these grants that are fairly substantial. They deal with personnel and they deal with salaries and stuff like that. I'm still very concerned that we have somebody that's going to oversee these grants. A simple grant for an ATV may not be much of a problem. You purchase it, you show you purchase it, and we pay it, it's all said and done. But some of these grants I see are going to be the entire year. They're going to deal with personnel, they're going to deal with equipment, they're going to deal with signs and purchase. I personally don't have time to take one of these grants and manage the grant, for sure, and I'm sure a lot of the other people in this commission don't. I just think we still need to entertain the idea, whether we do it this go-around or next, that somebody manages these grants for us on a day-to-day basis and make sure they're getting done, to make sure they're getting accomplished, make sure the money's being spent where it's supposed to be spent. This is state monies that we're still dealing with, and I'm sure we're going to be audited, and I sure would like to make sure we pass that audit and that we can say that the money was spent the way it was supposed to be spent. So I'll get off my soapbox. You guys hear from me every time on that, and that's all.
I'm just going to deal with one quick point. At our last meeting, November meeting, we passed a motion basically allowing us to charge up to a 10% fee for administration. So we do have that already, and we can use, and if anybody wants to look it up, I've got a copy in front of me, basically allowing us to use a third party or somebody from our staff, and our fee is not to exceed 10%. The nice thing about this, because this is a double thing, and I just want to sort of make a comment on this, we're basically saying all the fees cannot exceed 10%. So on law enforcement, we are already going to be paying the 10% for that. But in the case of somebody like BLM or another organization comes along, for example, BLM has to fork over 22% of the grant to Washington for supervisory fees. We're not allowing that. We only allow them to do 10, and they've got to find the 12% somewhere else. So that's already done. But going back to the agenda item, of course, and I can't find my agenda. The item was basically about setting monies aside. Yes, it was setting monies aside for law enforcement. I would have a point to that in that if we choose to set monies aside, we can either do it from this budgeted grant amount, or if we feel it appropriate, and this is one of the things I'd like to come to discussion, we could take monies from the 2016 budget, which basically we get funded in 2014, but we don't use the money until 2015. We could take, just for the sake of argument, $20,000, set that aside, and then if during the year 2014, if an agency comes to us and says, hey, we've got a big motorcycle festival, or B, we're having a real problem at Moon Rocks, and we want to put some officers out there, then we would have a pool of money, which would again be supervised by the justice. Is that correct? Justice Department?
Yeah. You know, again, I have to apologize. I actually read that wrong. You're right. I was talking about something a little bit different. But yes, and another thing that I was thinking of too is trying to get some of these VIN inspections done. If it was, I just think it's important. If we're not getting these, back to where we talked with DMV, if we're not getting these VIN inspections done, we're not getting these vehicles registered, and the money's not coming in. So my apologies, I was talking about something a little different. You are correct, Chairman. That was my proposal, is to set a small amount aside for some type of special event or request that came in during the middle of the year for a special event that they might not have known about a year in advance, where they needed to do actually OHV enforcement, whether it's VIN inspection or actually OHV enforcement. I think it would be nice to be able to have that law enforcement could take that, because it's going to help us in the end. Because if they're enforcing the, say Sand Mountain or wherever, and they have a weekend and they want to say, hey, we need to do $2,500 for put an officer out there to do enforcement, sticker enforcement, to make sure that those guys are doing that enforcement. That's what I was kind of thinking, something like that.
And a quick, I know a couple of, but thank you for your patience. Do you have an issue with taking that, instead of taking the $20,000 or the amount from the $75,000 that we're going to grant tomorrow, do you have an issue with moving it from next year's budget?
No.
Okay.
No, it's just something to think about, whether we do it now or whether we do it at the coming grant. Just something to think about.
Okay, Commissioner Richardson, I saw you first, and then followed by Commissioner Lambert.
I have Commissioner Richardson. One of the things I would ask is that normally when you have an outside organization using a piece of something else that they're not responsible for, they allocate a budget for police work. They allocate a budget for other parties that are involved in the process, in the event, to pay for outside services, whether it be for police services, for porta-johns, or whatever. So I would say that, yes, I agree, we set something aside for this purpose specifically, but the vendor or the event organizer would be responsible for that cost to bring in those policemen or whatever the requirement is, whatever the resource is, and make them responsible for that, as opposed to our small budget. Moon Rocks, if there's a event going on at Moon Rocks, then the event organizer would be responsible for the additional police requirement or whatever the additional requirement is.
I think that, I think we're more away from events and more to getting VIN checks done, because that's a big issue for us, and also some enforcement. So I think events are good. And Jeff Lee, I'm going to let you,
Okay,
thank
go.
you for your patience, Mr. Lambert. I'll let Mr. Commissioner Lee just answer that really quickly.
Yeah, just to answer your question, and I think you're absolutely right, because I know that happens. If there's a special event that goes on, usually that organizer will fund that, but I'm kind of looking at a little bit different, not as far as actually, you know, the safety and the law enforcement of the people. I'm talking specifically to OHV, or OHV sticker enforcement specifically, not just the safety of those people that are there, but in the same sense, yes, too, I'm also speaking specifically also for VIN inspections. If we got to get those VIN inspections done. So it's kind of a two-way deal. I absolutely understand where you're coming from. You're absolutely right. But I'm specifically talking toward OHV sticker registration. So
Mr. Lambert, thank you for your patience. You have the floor.
Commissioner Lambert, for the record, I strongly support taking care of the VIN inspections and getting the police out doing patrol items, not so much education as actually patrol items. And I'm prepared to make a motion to block $20,000 of the 14 budget for such activity, if that's something that we are kind of like polling up and down the aisle here.
I don't see anybody jumping up and down.
Okay, I have a motion regarding the 2014 budget law enforcement funds to go ahead and pull $20,000 of the 14 funds that are available in the near future for summer enforcement activities for law enforcement as a pool, first come, first serve, as approved by the Law Enforcement Commission.
Limit per, and are you having it approved by us?
I made the first motion on an
No,
amendment.
are you making, okay. Would you accept a friendly amendment to that, saying that each one of these grants will be approved by the commission first, and that there would be a limit of, say, $2,000 per?
Let's go 2,500 and I accept it.
Okay. All right, I'm going to restate the motion for the record. All right. Okay, the motion is to set aside, Kathy, are you ready? Okay, the motion is to set aside $20,000 from the 2015 law enforcement budget. Remember, the 2015 budget is collected in 2014. To set aside the $20,000 for additional grants to law enforcement. Each grant shall not exceed $2,500 and must be first approved by the full commission. Do I have a second on this motion?
I'll second it.
No, it's your motion. It's your motion. You got it. Do you have a second?
I would second that.
Okay, seconded by Commissioner Baker. Yes, yes, Kathy.
For the record, was the last sentence in that must be approved by the full commission?
That is correct. All right. So we have a motion set forth, which is Mr. Lambert's motion, which was restated by myself, and it's been seconded by Commissioner Baker. Do I have any further discussion? Mr. Elmore.
Commissioner Elmore, for the record, I guess I have two questions, clarification. One, is this additional money in addition to the already, or planned, I should say, allotment for law enforcement, or does it come out of that law enforcement allotment?
The money that we're spending now, the $75,000 going to law enforcement, comes from the 2013 budget.
Correct.
The $20,000 will come from the law enforcement budget for 2014.
So
collected in 2014.
if all things were the same next fiscal year, we would have $55,000 to spend on other law enforcement. So it comes out of the
right.
law enforcement.
If the law enforcement budget collected in 2014 is $200,000, they would then have $180,000.
Okay. My second question, I guess, is more directed for Commissioner Lee. Is $2,500 a cap? I mean, I have no idea as to what type of time, therefore, monetary need would be for an overtime, a special event to do VIN inspections for 2 days in Austin, Nevada, or is that enough?
I would think so.
Okay.
And hopefully that it would be less, that we could spread it out, so it went out to more than just theoretically 4 events, or more than that actually, but 8 events, but hopefully it could go out to more than that. But, I think it would be, as Commissioner Richardson said, it's not going to be just hire an officer to go out and patrol because of a special event. No, this needs to be targeted to OHV regulation enforcement, so I think that would be enough.
Okay, so Commissioner Elmore, again, in final clarification, all we're doing is basically creating a sub-account within the law enforcement to automatically be funded for $20,000 for next year's fiscal budget. Got it.
That they could come to us in mid-cycle and say, hey, we're trying to do X, Y, Z, and so it wouldn't have to be a once-a-year type deal.
Okay, thank you.
All right, do I have any more discussion? I'm looking around. All right, I'm going to move to the vote. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously. All right. Thank you, Commissioner Lee. All right. Okay, number 12. This basically is procedure for grant requests that may or may have missed one or any of the deadlines, or failing to meet some of the requirements. Basically, where we're at is this. We're brand new at this, and there was a lot of administration and a lot of moving parts, including our executive secretary found another job, but was kind enough to continue with us to help us out while we did the transition to the new temporary executive secretary. So there's a lot of things happened. Basically, what I'd be asking is that we accept the 21 grant proposals that we've received, even though there are some ragged edges. For example, Mesquite had got the request in via email, but their hard copy got lost. They had sent it, it wasn't delivered properly, they had to resend it. Well, by the time they resent it, it was after the 15th. And there were several sort of little, malfunctions that happened like that. And apparently, after talking to other people who do grants, that's not unusual. So basically what I'd be asking, what I'd be entertaining a motion for, is for us to accept the 21 grant proposals that we have on the agenda and move ahead with them, even though some of them might have missed part of a deadline, but all of them were in by the 15th in one form or another. It's just that they maybe didn't get their electronic copy to us until a few days later, or had to add an odd letter, or that type of thing. And I will open it up for discussion. Commissioner Richardson.
Commissioner Richardson, just a note that I had. Who proofs these? Does that come out of the executive secretary? Is that?
Well, we were in the middle of switching executive secretaries at the time. Kathy was brand new and jumped into this. I basically called her and begged her, and she jumped in and tried to do it. We pitched in. I pitched in to get some of these things approved and documented. Commissioner Lambert pitched in. And basically, and again, we've got to be very careful, because if I say to 4 commissioners, hey, come and help us get this done, all of a sudden we've got a quorum and we're in, deep doo-doo. So again, we had to.
Do we want input from the person that's actually going to be doing the work?
I mean, absolutely. Kathy, do you have any comments?
Kathy Grost, for the record. I do have experience with grants and with the presenting of them. And as Paul Jackson stated, there are rules that are hard and fast, and I think the rule that was hard and fast here is that the grant proposals needed to be in front of the commission by 5 p.m. on January the 15th in some form that we requested. And every one of the grant proposals that are before the commission were in at that time. And with my experience in grants in the past, that would be a typical, adequate situation for them to be considered.
Commissioner Richardson, so we're not setting precedent by allowing the ones that have mistakes to come forward? Okay.
No.
Then I'm good.
No. All right, I'm looking for a motion. Mr. Lambert.
Commissioner Lambert, for the record, I motion we move forward with the 21 grants that are presented in the package. I'm very comfortable that we had basic information to work with, and that any defects might have been handled through clarification work in the week after, which we did, and have made notifications and phone calls. The motion is to proceed with the 21 grants on the table.
Do I have a second?
Commissioner McKay seconds.
Thank you, sir. All right, any further discussion? Mr. Elmore, Commissioner Elmore.
Commissioner Elmore, for the record, I guess I absolutely feel, given the fluidness of this process, it being our first time, I think it would be prudent for this commission to accept the 21 grants as is. I would just ask that if there are ragged edges, as the chairman described them, that we're made aware of those, either as the individual grant comes up or in the beginning of the grant process.
I can do that for you right away, Mr. Elmore. Douglas County, there was an issue with the electronic copy. With Mesquite, there was an issue with the hard copies. There was a slight issue. There was one issue with one of the proposals from Endow. And I believe there was some missing paperwork from, Kathy, you may help me out. Was there anything else? Was there another one? I think that was about it, wasn't it?
I believe that is correct.
Right. There were some issues where we thought we didn't have paperwork on one or two of them, but we were able to find it. One person had it, but the other person didn't, or didn't know it was there. And, you know, it was just one of those things. We had to coordinate and sit down together and get it done.
That's correct, and I had a slight issue with an interface with the site which is the OHV website interfacing with my Outlook account. So everything that was supposed to come in was actually there, but there were a couple of things that I didn't see for a period of time afterwards, but it was all there.
Okay, thank you. All right, any other comments, questions, discussion? All right, I'm going to move for the vote. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All righty. All right, agenda item 13, temporary executive secretary. As we've discussed during the meeting, our executive secretary left on January the 8th. Kathy was kind enough to step up. Kathy had already interviewed for the position and was basically third in line from those old interviews. So I felt comfortable in being able to bring her on. We did have a special meeting to approve her coming on January the 8th. The special meeting was not well attended. We did not have a quorum. So in the interests of expediency, we just went ahead and brought her on with the hope that we can do a retroactive contract. What I would look for a proposal for is for us to have a retroactive contract going back to January and issue her a 30-day contract with the option of adding another 30-day contract until such time as we've completed our search for an executive secretary. Mr. Lambert, you have a question?
So would the one 30-day contract get us through tomorrow, or would it be two contracts to get through tomorrow?
The first contract would get us through the 8th of February, which would include the special phone meeting, which is on the 6th. And then we would issue another special contract, unless something went completely haywire, issue another 30-day contract from the 8th of February until the 10th of March. And then we could, go from there until we get our executive secretary. I'm expecting that we would have an executive secretary hired, and it could well be Kathy, at our March meeting, and that would be a permanent situation. I'd also like to do this on a salary basis. We have budgeted $1,000 per month, and I'd like us to, adhere to that and have a $1,000 a month salary based on the 30-day contract. She will, of course, be an independent contractor, because we have no reason to bring somebody on as an employee until our meeting in March.
Comfortable.
Do we have any comments? Yes, Mr. Rummel.
Commissioner Elmer, for the record, I guess, I don't have the date for the March meeting in front of me, but,
The 20th.
so if the second contract would get us through the 10th,
Right.
there would be a
Then
gap.
we'd have a partial contract.
Okay.
And we'd word the contract that way. I don't think that's going to be an issue, because it may be that Kathy is our permanent
Sure.
executive. But we have to go through the search procedure, and we have to interview people.
Okay.
All right, so can I,
For a motion.
can I have a motion? Just,
This is Commissioner Cox. Can we even post the job opening and conduct interviews less than 90 days?
90 days should be right around the number, but if that doesn't happen, because we've said we'll do temporary contracts, we can continue the temporary contract to whenever we're available to do it. Okay. All right, can I get a motion? Is there?
Do you want to do your own motion, or do you need one?
I can, why don't you make a motion, I'll restate it for you.
Okay, for my rewrite of motion, Gary Lambert, for the record, I motion that we move forward with a temporary employment contract for Kathy based on a $1,000 cap until we've completed our executive secretary search and made a decision.
All right.
Or at the chair's will.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to restate the motion. The commission will engage in a 30-day contract, which will be retroactive to January the 8th. Such contract will be paid at $1,000 per month salary. The contract will be based on a at-will basis and will be a what do they call it? Independent contractor contract. The contract may be renewed. I'm waiting for it to write it up.
As necessary.
The contract may be renewed every 30 days until such time as we have hired a permanent executive secretary. All right. Is there a second?
Friendly amendment?
Go for it.
Why do we have to go through the renewal process? Why don't we just make it until we hire? Why don't we just make it?
Because we have to have some kind of definition. Yeah, I mean, but then it's an unspecified time. It's better if we have a.
2 days after the March meeting.
But if we don't have anybody hired by the March meeting, then what are we going to do?
The March meeting, you
Renew it at the March meeting.
Okay. All right, so we will engage in a contract. There's friendly amendment. Just make your life interesting. The amendment would be strike 30-day contract and would be based on a contract. The contract would run through March 20th, 2014, and will be paid at $1,000 per month or any what do you call it when you break it down? No, we can change it at that point. Yeah, prorated, yeah, I'm sorry, thank you, Kathy. Prorated rates based on that month. All right, so do I have a second?
I would second that.
Seconded by Mr. Cox. All right, any further discussion? All right, seeing none, I will move to the vote. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Seeing none, motion passes unanimously. All right, moving right along, let's see. Executive Search Committee. As we had mentioned in the last item, we need to find ourselves an executive secretary. I would ask for volunteers to be part of the Executive Search Committee. Let's see, Commissioner Baker?
I would be happy.
All right. Are there any other volunteers? Commissioner McKay? Clearly was in the military and knew if you volunteer first, you can't get ordered to do so. Right? All right. Any volunteers? All right. I'm going to put myself on that committee. As is our tradition, I will not be the chair since I'm the commission chair, so I will appoint Commissioner Baker as chair.
Action item for the commission. Vote.
Yeah, I will in a second. Okay. Okay. Are there any other volunteers? All right, so I will look for a motion, Commissioner Baker, to form and populate the Executive Search Committee with yourself as chair, Mr. McKay, and myself. Commissioner Baker? Make the motion? Yeah.
Make the motion?
Okay, yes.
I would make the motion that Commissioner Baker be the chair of the Executive Secretary Search Committee with committee members McKay and Jackson.
All right, do I have a second?
Commissioner McKay will second it.
All right. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I will move to the vote. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Seeing none, it is approved unanimously. So that would be Baker, McKay, and me. All right, item number 15, I am going to move to, tomorrow morning. Right after public comment. All right. Okay, item number 16, is there any public comment? Please note, public comment is limited to 2 minutes. Do we have anybody for public comment? We're doing almost well. All right. At this point, we're going to take a short adjournment. I'm sorry, I apologize.
Okay.
Okay. Seeing no public comment, I'm going to move ahead. Again, no public comment? All right. I'm now going to take a short adjournment before we continue with the rest of the meeting. 10 minutes? Yep. Okay, we will reconvene at 10:35. Gentlemen, thank you.
Paul?
Sir?
You highlighted me to do the dunes and trails, so chair that part of the meeting.
Yeah.
I have a financial interest, I could have a financial interest in that grant. I'm a member of that club, and if I volunteer to do the work and get reimbursed for mileage.
And which one is it?
The dunes and trails.
Okay, just hand that off to me.
Yeah,
Is it the first one or the second one?
the first one.
Okay, just remind me, just say Commissioner Jackson, financial interest, please.
And I I may not volunteer, but be reimbursed for that.
Yeah, I know, because I have a similar issue with Nevada.
Right, so let's say that you have an existing
I don't have a direct financial interest, but
you obviously
You know what?
if they reimburse for mileage.
That's suspended right now.
following yourself with.
You know, 'cause we're flying blind. We have no regulation to fall back on now. So, you know, we can't say, well, this is what, you know, we said, so. Tense. So are you staying with us, or you, Fantastic.
Two distinctions here is if they're coming in with free will and purchasing something, or obviously they're doing something under the open bidding, then, you know, position, I guess, to the Ethics Commission, I feel. Wasn't anything that was a direct pecuniary response of doing this. But it just makes sense to ask them about it, because if you get their blessings, there's good faith, due diligence on their behalf. I mean, if I were a business owner, this is what you said. I was saying, well, look, you know, the governor put me on this. Obviously, you're special. The challenge becomes.
But on the same hand, I also don't want to be like posting your here. Now you can't bid on any of it.
Correct. Because if you found out that a significant amount of this work was liquid out on the ethics commission, you know, there's just too great of the appearance that you're lining your pockets through your work. Obviously, you would refuse. But the governor doesn't. Nobody has the power to override the laws. And so the idea that you have expertise is wonderful and public is served by it. But to the degree you find private conclusions or consultations with the Ethics Commission, that it's just something that would create too much appearance.
Well, and like I say, if you just read it, it's like if there was financial gain, basically you could. And I'm not even talking on this. Anything that says that improves the trail system.
Well,
now more people are
now
going
you're
to
getting.
ride.
I think
So there's a trickle down.
But
In
you
other words, they
agree-
can.
You agree there's a spectrum, right? If it's really attenuated, and sure, everything can be connected, if you have really,
If
far-reaching
say I'm on
philosophy.
the board of one of the clubs, and the clubs get a bid, and then I vote and say, hey, we're going to buy this unit, and we're going to buy it here. You know,
Well,
then it
on the
really
remote-
kind of.
on the remote
And
end.
I'm not, but you can see more of a direct correlation.
Benefiting the economy would be like one of the extreme ends of it, which somebody would, and the ethics commission would let you know what their view is. Somebody would argue, look, that's not a direct, I mean, sure. Could someone come into my store? Sure.
Yes.
But do I have existing contracts with CCSO? And if I got them, I'm not touching anything coming to me regarding CCSO.
I got a contract with a DMV, rider training bikes. I mean, now I deal with DMV, but I don't have a.
And you could just you could put a
I'm
request.
just going to disclose everything.
Yeah, but I would, I mean, if I were a business owner, and it sounds like this is a concern you have, this is my personal opinion, if I were a business owner, and I felt like I was shooting myself in the foot by being on the commission, I myself would get an ethics opinion. Adverse, me, myself, I'm not giving anyone advice, I'd say it's not worth it. Yeah. Because you don't, I mean, like I said, you don't,
Best for.
you don't want to be embroiled in a, and the big picture is this person lining your pockets with what they do on the public, in the public role? Yeah, that's the big picture.
You know, I'm the opposite. I want to make sure they don't waste the money, that the money actually gets spent right.
Right.
You know, and that's really my.
Be able to get the code provisions for the ethics, because we've had people do that before.
I have the. In fact, I just got my renewal package. And it has the ethics page.
That's the way to
I'm
go.
just going to go straight with that.
Official attorney advice is that the thing that people care a lot about is money. The thing that people argue about is money. So we're not talking about here, you know, whether to erect a sign. We're talking about whether to hand free money over to people. And that's, in my opinion, something that's likely to cause people to want to argue about anything.
Got it.
You know what I mean?
And I'm Honestly, that's one of my big concerns. That's why I want to be involved. I want to make sure that you have the ethics commission behind you. I mean, that's. I mean, I have to imagine that would give you some peace of mind. Okay, I appreciate it. Like I said, just again, being Michael's. You got a target. So and, I know it doesn't sound like a big thing, but it can be, especially.
Interests can be, interests can be adverse to each other, competitive, yeah. I hear you. Okay, thank you.
I appreciate that.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks.
Start carrying that much stuff around, but I may have to.
Mary Alice, you're always good. Kathy, you're good. Mary Alice, you're always good. Kathy, you're good.
So far, we're moving along quite nicely.
Ticking.
Along that
Tick, 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 tick. All right, where is my stuff? All right, guys, we're going to get ready to get started in a minute, so. Where is my agenda? Are you kidding me? I have an agenda that's marked up, and I don't have it. Down in Vegas, Douglas County Sheriff's Department, get ready to step up. Nevada Department of Wildlife, please be ready. And BLM, your law enforcement grant will be coming up right after that. I expect these three to be fairly quick. So if you got those folks in Vegas, if you're ready, we're going to start getting up. Look, we have a new and improved Commissioner Richardson. Yay!
I think the Mesquite Police might be in Vegas as well.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, but they're like fourth up or something. All right, ladies and gentlemen, if we can please take our seats. Oops, I'm sorry. I'm blocking the whole place here.
It's a trip hazard.
You know what?
Yeah, you want me to trip.
Pretty much, yeah.
I've been taken advantage of.
I need to start carrying that.
Ding the bell. I'm only kidding. All right, we ready? Okay, we're going to give it just a couple of minutes. Okay, Mr. Richardson, did you take a look? Oh, sorry. Did you take a look at your agenda?
I have the agenda here in front of me.
Did you take a look at it? Sure. You ready?
What part do you want me to do?
The rules.
I don't have that.
Okay. You don't have this thing? It should be in your packet.
One that you gave me?
Yeah.
Rules. Okay.
Are you okay covering those?
Want me to go over the...
Yeah.
Is
this what you're looking for, Paul? This thing?
No, he's got it, he's good. Everybody had it in the package. Are we ready over there? Okay. We'll be just one moment, folks. I set the lineup, the first presentation, after we go through the rules and a couple of other things, will be Douglas County Sheriff's Department, followed quickly by Nevada Department of Wildlife, and then the Bureau of Land Management. So if you guys could get yourselves to the testimony desks and get ready to rock and roll. Yeah? No? Yeah. Which one are you with, sir? Okay. Yeah. As soon as the wildlife will be calling in from Vegas, so as soon as Douglas County's done, you can jump right on there and get yourself set up. So you can be getting set up while we're waiting. Okay. Well, him hand it out. All righty. Going to reconvene this meeting of the Nevada Off-Highway Vehicles Commission. This portion of the meeting, we will be going over the actual grant proposals, and we will be hearing presentations from each of the prospective grantees. We have some rules that were sent out to you, or complete with some helpful hints. Commissioner Richardson is going to go over those quickly with you all, so everybody's on the same page. Commissioner Richardson.
Commissioner Richardson, good morning. Grant applicants, you have an agenda. Everybody got an agenda? Everybody? Oh, okay. Each of you will have 15 minutes for your presentation and 5 minutes for any additional presentations, followed by questions from the commission members. You will be asked for more detail, so be prepared, please. Please refer to the agenda to see the order in which you will appear. I expect to have all the presentations completed by the first day on Friday, January 31st. Any presentations not heard by 4:30 will be heard after 10 a.m. on Saturday, which is tomorrow, and the location is different at the Plaza Hotel right down the street. Okay? It's a very important point that each of the commissioners has been given an e-copy of her application. Do not rely solely on that application. Bring copies of anything you may wish the commissioners to look at. There will be up to 11 commissioners in attendance. You are also welcome to use PowerPoint, large photos, whatever you think you may need to get your information across. You must make your own arrangements with the LCB. LCB, you know what that is? I don't know what that is.
Legislative Bureau, the people that run this place.
The IT guys downstairs, I guess, in regard to those logistics to make sure you're ready for your presentations. You will also be allowed to include information and more detailed information that is not part of your application. For those of you conferencing from Las Vegas, please contact Kathy at kgrost@nvohv.com for help in delivery of the handouts only. In the interest of time, it will be helpful for you to have anyone who wants to speak in support of your grant to do so in your allotted presentation time. So 15 minutes is a hard time. 15 minutes is 15 minutes. On Saturday the 1st, which is tomorrow, the commission will start deliberations and making decisions. This will be followed by votes on which applications will be funded. The commission may have questions, so making a good member
Maybe a good idea to have somebody
of your organization, making a member of your organization available by phone, or even having someone in the room may be a good idea to help you answer whatever questions that we may have. This will then be finalized on February 6th via conference call, at which time we may hear any appeals. This meeting will be open to the public. The commission has decided to keep the number of grants to around 12. The commission is under no obligation to give out all the funds available at this time and may offer another grant opportunity later this year. If for any reason you feel that any part of the process has been unfair to your application, please bring it to the chair, who will then bring it to the commission at the proper time. There are several opportunities for appeal of decisions made in reference to your grant application. You have any questions, feel free to email Mr. Jackson at his email address. Any questions? Comments? Mr. Chair?
Thank you. All right, we're going to jump right in, and our first applicant, and it's always tough to be first. It is. Come on. All right, but we'll be nice. We're a really nice group. Our first applicant is going to be Douglas County. Name and rank and everything else for the record. That would be useful.
My name is David Amami. Last name is A-Y-M-A-M-I. I'm the administrative captain for the Douglas County Sheriff's Office. I'm actually sitting in for Ross Chichester, our financial analyst, who had to go to a meeting with the sheriff and the county manager to make our budget work. So unfortunately, you get stuck with me. I was a previous patrol commander, and I did deal with this grant or deal with this service that we're providing last year. Basically, what we're asking for is some assistance. We put 2 officers that work overtime in the U.S. Forest Service properties during weekends and high traffic areas or high time areas during the summer. We already have a local agreement with the Humboldt-Toyobe National Forest for limited patrols. And what we're asking for is some funding to help with overtime to cover personnel, because it's not in our budget to do this. What these officers do, if you go on the second page of our proposal, this is a vehicle we already have. We're not asking for money for it. Just so you see that we already have this program established. We put 2 officers out, usually on a Friday and Saturday evenings, into U.S. Forest Service areas. We've already developed a book. I didn't make copies of the book because it's rather extensive, but it shows all U.S. Forest Service lands, BLM lands that are in Douglas County. The officers will patrol these areas on Fridays and Saturday nights, or if there's holiday situations, we'll put them out there on those days. And what they're looking for is they're looking for illegal activity, illegal forest fires, juvenile parties, anything that's going on in the Forest Service land that violates the law, and make sure that our public's safe out there. So in a nutshell, that's basically what we're requesting, is some assistance with funding for overtime to put our officers out in the U.S. Forest Service properties.
All right, thank you, sir.
I hope that was quick enough.
Yeah, it was great. We like fast. It is rumored that we do add points for people that get things done fast, but, you know, that's only a rumor. All right, I've got a couple of quick questions. You state you mainly do this in the evening, and obviously, you know, we're looking for OHV participation. Would you be able to do daytime patrols if we gave you a grant?
We will, because it's limited. It says in here, you know, how much it costs us for a 10-hour day for 2 officers, because we don't put one officer out in the woods by themselves. 1, they probably get lost, and 2, you know, it's not an officer safety thing. So it's about $1,000 a day to run this. So it's really limited. So we try to do what's, you know, the best bang for our buck. So usually we find like Fridays, Saturday evenings is usually when you're going to have the most people out there. During the day, it's going to be, you know, probably people using off-road vehicles, and they're not really committing a lot of crimes, but we can put people out there on day shift. That was part of your grant stipulation, that you wanted us to patrol during some day shift activity. I'm sure we could work that out.
Okay, and I know you have to do this for the Forestry Service, because I'm kind of used to dealing with them. We would, before we did a grant, we would definitely put a stipulation that we received contact sheets. Is that going to be an issue?
Contact sheets as in?
Who did you contact?
Yes.
Basically, so we know that, you know, you're out there and you're talking to people.
Yes, what the officers are required to do is obviously they set up on overtime, and the shift that they work, they're required to fill a log out and turn it into our administrative analyst, Ross Chichester. And Ross Chichester will be the one who will do all the reporting. If you require any reporting, he will make available to you all the daily logs and the hours that the officers are working.
Okay. If a commissioner, if if we fund this and we decide that, we like to see where our money's being used, and we need to be able to report back, obviously, to our constituents, would there be availability for a commissioner or a commissioner appointee to do a ride-along?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, that's all my questions. All right, I'll take Commissioner Richardson first, followed by Commissioner Elmore.
Commissioner Richardson, just to follow on what you exactly said, are we going to know in advance? You said you have the logs, and I suspect the logs are after the fact.
Yes.
Are we going to know in advance when this is going to happen? Because, I mean, me personally, I would love to go along.
Yeah, what we do is, what I did last year, and I'm sure they're going to do the same thing this year, is we figure out how much money we have, and then we know how many shifts we can run. And then what we'll do is we'll put up a sign-up sheet, which last year it was Fridays and Saturdays, and we calculated how many days we could do, and then the officers would sign up. So you could easily contact the sheriff's office, and we'll let you know. It'll probably be Fridays and Saturdays unless you stipulate, hey, we'd really like to do it on a certain date, on a day shift. We can accommodate that. But you can contact the sheriff's office, and we can easily sign you up. And it'll most likely be Fridays and Saturdays is when we found the most activity.
Commissioner Richardson, can we stipulate at least a time frame when that notice is given to us? 2 weeks, 30 days, something like that? Is that reasonable?
Commissioner Richardson, to answer your question in general, we can do whatever we want.
And I would ask that we have at least a 2-week notice. Is that okay?
And that would be fine as once we know how much money we have. That's my only stipulation. Once we know how much money we have, then we know how many shifts we can run. And that's just a matter of, we know we have X amount of money. We're going to run this many shifts. We do a schedule, and then we can easily send that to you.
2 weeks?
Yeah, Commissioner Richardson, tomorrow when we're dealing with them and we're setting the parameters, that's when we would bring that up. So you may want to make a note and go forward. Commissioner Elmore, you were next. Thank you for your patience.
Commissioner Elmore, trying to understand, currently you have 30 patrols budgeted each year? Is that the way I read the
We try to do 30. Last year, we got a little bit of money from the U.S. Forest Service, and obviously they've cut back. That's why we're looking for other avenues to get revenue. And a lot of times we will do more. It all depends, as you all know, with budgets. It depends how our overtime's going for the year. If we're able to save some overtime and we can actually fund our own personnel through our own budget to do it, we'll do 30, but we do as many as we can possibly do. And we try to do it from May through August, September. So we'll try to put in as many shifts as we can.
So I guess my question is, and you answered part of it, the current patrol occurs at an overtime rate. This patrol, if we were to fund it, would also occur at an overtime rate, even if we were to ask that it would be done during the day.
Yes.
So any patrol is...
Any patrol will be done at an overtime rate.
Is at an overtime rate.
All right. Do we have any other questions? Go ahead, Commissioner Baker.
I'm just trying to understand this a little bit more, given that it's an OHV grant. Can you give me some indication of what you would be finding that would be protecting or law enforcement from the OHV community?
What we'd be doing is looking for people that are driving recklessly, people that haven't registered their vehicles, anything that's going to endanger any public safety that's out in on the U.S. Forest Service property.
Go ahead, Mr. Lambert.
Hello, sir. Gary Lambert for the record. As we all know, the Pine Nuts has a predominant use area that's BLM interface. The BLM has a big issue with trigger trash. This is strictly a Forest Service request, or you're going to go out and do the Pine Nuts area in El Dorado Canyon, Johnson Lane, or is this strictly a Forest Service area? Because I personally spend a lot of time cleaning up the pine nuts from trigger trash, so I'm going to favor you more if I know that you're addressing trigger trash and garbage and VIN inspections and what we clean up, because the OHV community cleans that area up regularly.
Again, the previous grant, I believe, was through the U.S. Forest Service. So they obviously wanted us to do the Forest Service. Obviously, if we get grant money from this group and you want us to patrol those other areas, they would be added into there. And I think we did also patrol those areas last year, but obviously whoever pays the grant, that's where we need to work.
I understand.
So,
I mean,
and
there's a
we're,
much
we're
bigger-
fully willing to do that.
There's a much bigger compliance problem probably in the Pine Nuts area
Oh,
right now
absolutely.
than what you have in where you've asked for money. So you'll take direction from us kindly when you take our money, right?
It's your money.
I thought so. Thanks.
All righty, do I see any, Commissioner Lee?
That's Commissioner Lee. And I guess just to follow up, that was my concern, that it would be just the Forest Service. It'd be nice to see that it wasn't just the Forest Service area, that it was BLM. It was the only place there was going to be an issue. And kind of like Commissioner Baker said, you know, we really want to see this go toward OHV. And personally, I know there's been a little bit of hesitation on the side of law enforcement on enforcing this new OHV regulation. Not new, but I guess Douglas County is prepared to.
Absolutely. This, just so you know, this project is very near and dear to the sheriff's heart. This was something that he really pushed for. We had done it several years ago, and then obviously the grant money had gone away from the Forest Service, and then it came back, and he was very forceful in that he wanted this done. And yeah, he's very aware of the OHV situation, and he fully wants to support that.
Good, thank you.
All right, do I see any other questions? Yes, go ahead.
Commissioner
Bill.
Giroux, for the record. Now, it sounds like you're doing patrols when you say Friday, Saturday, and this is nighttime patrols?
It's usually swing shifts, so the officers would come on 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and then they'd patrol through the evening. That's when they're going to find primarily a lot of the issues that they found before is they'll get a lot of the partiers out there. They will build the big bonfires and a bunch of issues out there. They want to control that. And there tends to be more people out on the weekends, camping, hiking, using their off-road vehicles on the weekends. So that's typically when we want to do that. But again, if you want to stipulate, you want us to target it more during a Saturday when there's more off-road vehicles, we can obviously add that in.
Yeah, I would think that Saturday and Sunday, you know, daylight hours are going to be, you know, huge as far as the off-road, you know, usage. And I think, you know, the commission is really looking more for not only enforcement, but also education, going out and, you know, saying, hey, you need to have it registered. And, you know, in fact, it'd be nice to have a provision to where you could actually help with even a VIN inspection as part of the process. You know, the more we get
You're welcome to
registered.
put that in there, sir.
Yeah, okay.
All right, I see any, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Mr. McKay. Commissioner McKay.
Thank you for your presentation. I was just trying to think a little out of the box. I can understand your safety reasons for trying to have 2 officers at the same time. However, Forest Service, BLM, several others do it with 1 person. And then perhaps you could have a person part-time working instead of 2 guys on overtime and maybe cover 6 months, 4 or 5 hours a day versus 2 days in the evenings for partiers.
We've been pretty steadfast, and we like to have 2 officers because of what's going to go on there. Especially what we've been doing is in the evenings with the parties and stuff. It's safer for the officers to have 2. I think the sheriff will probably want to stick with the 2 officers because of the safety reason. Obviously, working a day shift would probably be a little bit safer. Again, it's your money. If that's something you'd like to stipulate in there, that would be a call for the sheriff, whether he wants to allow 1 officer to go out there or not.
I think Ms. McKay was getting at, if we're giving you 30 grand, can you just hire 2 guys part-time at regular pay? You know, maybe somebody who's already post-trained and you bring them in, or somebody who's recently retired. I think that's what he was asking.
Absolutely. If that's the stipulation to the grant, then we'll do what the grant indicates.
All right, terrific. All right, do we have anything else? Because we do need to move along. We have a lot of these to go. Thank you very much, sir. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much for your consideration.
All right, and I believe our next applicant is Department of Wildlife, and they're coming to us from Vegas. BLM, if you're at the ready, and Mesquite, if you're at the ready right after that. Is that our person from the Department of Wildlife there in Vegas?
Yes, sir.
All right, please go ahead. Name and...
Good morning, Mr.
Kathy's trying to.
Oh, sorry.
Good morning, Mr.
1 second,
Chairman,
you can
and-
hold for 30 seconds.
Oh.
Quick, Kathy, let's go.
There was a question from Commissioner Richardson and Commissioner Lee about the numbering of the proposals. The proposals are numbered as they are listed in the agenda. So Douglas County is proposal number 1, and Nevada Department of Wildlife will be number 2. There was confusion among the commissioners, or some of the commissioners apparently, about the numbering.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving right along. Department of Wildlife, please go ahead. Name, rank, and all that good stuff for the record.
Good morning. My name is Paul Dankowski. I'm a game warden captain with Nevada Department of Wildlife. And I thank you for the opportunity to speak on the NDAL, Nevada Department of Wildlife LE grant proposal, and I'm happy to answer any questions related to that. And I believe my coworker Ed Lingar is in your audience, and he will have any additional hard copies that you, if you need those.
You need those handed out right away, please, Mr. Lingard. Paul, why don't you cover the grant, basically? What, are you looking for equipment? What are you doing?
This year, we're asking for equipment, specifically 3 OHVs to assist game wardens in patrol efforts to maximize voluntary compliance with registration requirements on OHVs utilized by sportsmen.
Okay. Is there anything you want to tell us about the OHVs? Are they a particular type, or?
In this proposal, attached to my proposal, I do have a price quote. That make and model is just one that we have used in the past. I'm open to whatever the funding will allow. We use Michael Power Sports there in Reno because we've used them in the past. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to state for the record
that
these machines can be purchased from any dealer, and that any action by the Department of Wildlife would mean that they would look for the lowest bidder, and they would not particularly go to any one dealership based on anything or any extraneous reasons. So they would go to the lowest bidder only.
That is understood.
Can you clarify that would be keeping the money in the state of Nevada?
Yes, we could. Go ask the question.
I think we should clarify that we keep the money in the state of Nevada.
Paul?
And this is, yeah, and we are state of Nevada peace officers.
But I think the
Make your purchase.
I think the point was that Commissioner Baker was asking was that the purchases would be in the state of Nevada from a dealer within the state.
No problem.
Okay. All right. Any other questions from anyone? Ms. Cox.
This is Commissioner Cox. In your project need and benefit packet, you state you already have 17 OHVs, so I have to question the need for 3 additional?
The way we looked at it, knowing the smallness of the budget this year, we decided to ask for equipment rather than for salary money on the first go-around of the budget proposal. If you look at it as the equipment items are the first step into having OHV dollars fund the time, effort, and equipment for game wardens to monitor and enforce the OHV registration used by sportsmen in Nevada. That's kind of how we're looking at it. We would like to go in subsequent years to ask for salary money to fund the time specific to OHV registration enforcement. if that makes sense to you.
It
The, oh, NDOW is essentially a self-funded agency, so our dollars that we receive are from sportsmen's dollars, and our wildlife enforcement activities are funded through those, and we also do boating safety, which is funded through a Coast Guard grant. So any other duties that we do have basically have to come from a user-funded base source. So we're looking at the 3 OHVs in addition to our current OHVs and fleet of off-road trucks to be used. All of that will be used for this enforcement effort.
All right, terrific. All right, do we have any more questions?
Commissioner Richardson, hey, just a quick math. So you're asking for how many? 3?
3.
And
yes.
how many do you have now?
We have approximately 17, and I believe I described in there that some were purchased new, some are quite old, and some are have been forfeited by wildlife criminals through the court system. So
Okay.
they're in various states
of
of,
repair. Sure.
age and repair. Yes.
And so that was about 20? How many?
17 that I was able to account for, and then with the addition of 3, again, we have 3 administrative regions, so the thought process was provide each of our administrative regions with 1 new ATV.
And how many actual game wardens do you have?
We have approximately 32 field game wardens, so these 17 are shared amongst different agents, officers, and because of the distance between some of them, it makes it very difficult to share an off-road vehicle.
So the need is there, is what I'm trying to get at.
Excuse me?
The need is there.
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Elmore?
Commissioner Elmore, for the record, of the 17 existing units that you have, can you tell us how many of them you would consider operable? If you said some were in a poor state, and also, do you share those units? Are those just in the law enforcement division, or do biologists, Habitat, the other divisions of NDOW have access to those 17 machines?
And to answer your question about the state of repair, we try to keep all of our equipment in very good condition, but as they get older, sometimes the cost of repair and outfitting those older models, at some point it's time to move on to a newer model of OHV. These 17 are specific to the law enforcement division.
Okay.
So it's mostly game wardens that do use those.
Right, that was one of my questions. And are all 17 of the existing units operable in the field right now?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
Yes, they are.
Thank you.
All right, moving right along because we don't want to get behind schedule here. Are there any other questions from the commission? Okay, sir, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much. And next we have BLM, Sun Mountain Law Enforcement Project. Yeah, but it's in a different category. We're doing all the law enforcement and all the outreach and then all the... Okay, do we have our BLM person? And Mesquite, if you can get yourselves ready. All right, name, rank, all that good stuff for the...
Right, good morning, Commissioners. My name is Dan Westermeyer. I'm the Outdoor Recreation Planner for BLM in the Stillwater Field Office within the Carson City District. I'm standing in for Scott Fisher, our law enforcement ranger today. He's on detail down in Las Vegas right now and wasn't able to attend. So I'll give a quick presentation and run through it, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask. What Scott's asking for is 2 of these mobile mini storage units you'll see over here on the screen. These are kind of like you're familiar with the Connex storage type boxes, but these are heavy duty and they're high security type units. They're used down in Glamis, and I believe he said by the Border Patrol along the California, Arizona, and Mexico border. They store things in there and have not had any issues with theft or people breaking into them because they are high security. They have double doors, so one of the intent of use for this is to keep sand rails, their UTVs, and other emergency equipment in here, so they can drive in one end and then drive out the other end. They can also be set up for storage units, so any of their emergency equipment they can have and store in here. And you can see here's an example of what their high-security storage lock. The door itself is completely reinforced, and pretty much someone would require a heavy-duty torch, plasma cutter to be able to try to even attack this thing. This is an example right now of our entrance station at the Sand Mountain Recreation Area, and this is where they would like to put them. You see the two trailers on the left and right side right here, so here and here. Right now the sand rails are hauled out in this huge trailer here, and this is our recreation sand rail trailer that hauls out in this one here. The intent would be to put each container there so we're covered with our environmental compliance. We don't have to do anything as far as that goes. The issue we have right now is the law enforcement rangers. We only have 3 in our office, and normally on the big weekends 2 of them are detailed within our district to cover their area, so they can't get away. So when we have our large weekends, we normally bring in a couple of law enforcement officers from outside of the area. What happens is the sand rail and trailer, which are currently stored here in Carson City, has to be hauled back and forth every day out to the site. By having these containers, these can be left right on site, and that way any of the law enforcement rangers have access to them. Now, besides using the sand rails and the razor for patrolling, the sand rails are also set up to haul passengers, and that's one of their primary use. This is our recreation sand rail, and you notice right here is a basket. So we have 2 riders, 1 driver, 1 rider in the back, and then the passenger, the patient, once they're backboarded, is inserted in the little basket right here, and they're able to transport them to the front where we can have emergency personnel attend to them or load them up into a helicopter or an ambulance. I don't have a good picture of the law enforcement one, unfortunately, but the same way this one is set up, it's got a basket in the back over here that's able to haul patients. This is the new law enforcement razor they have set up. And that's it on the photos. So the intent would be to have these available not only for law enforcement rangers, but also REMSA, who come out and respond a lot of times for emergencies. They can keep equipment, extra backboards, C-collars, whatever else they need out there. They're available in case they get multiple calls. They don't have to run back to resupply. It's also available for Banner Community Hospital in Fallon. They can keep any supplies they need out there. And also for the local sheriff, who we work in partnership with, they're able to store either equipment or supplies, anything else that they may need out there. This would provide quite a bit of savings and then timeliness as far as response and being able to help the OHV users out there. So our intent is to purchase 2 of these, set these up out there on site, and be able to leave the equipment out there. Have any questions?
All righty. Any questions from the commission? Mr. Rich,
I just have
Mr.
this is Jim Richardson, Commission. Your security plan for these, once they get on site, what is it?
Essentially, the only people who had access to them would be like the local sheriff, the emergency responders, and the BLM. As far as security, they would be set up out there as you've seen where the trailers were at, and then we'd have our normal patrol, our normal people would be able to keep an eye on them as they drive back and forth.
Oh,
and then when staff is available on site, they're able to use them and keep an eye on them. Does that answer your question?
It does. Here's my caveat. We ship these from here to Afghanistan and back. They went out with, our stuff. They came back with rocks.
Okay.
So I would be, just think about that.
Come back with rocks.
Rocks, literally rocks. And the Connex is just like those. In Pakistan, they uncrated them, filled them with rocks, sent them back to us.
Okay.
So that's something for you guys to just think about. They are not impenetrable.
Oh, I got you. Okay.
They can be get into. I mean,
Yeah, and
that's
right now,
something to think about.
we have a smaller 20-foot regular Connex box that's been out there, and I've been here for 4 years in this office. It's never been broken into. The only thing we store in it is signpost signs and fencing material. And that sits out there 24 hours a day, all year long, and no one's even tried it. And that one would be easy to break into. These would be much more difficult for anybody to break into.
Okay. Commissioner Lambert.
I have a lot of experience with these, and generally, I've only had them stolen when I had an extra expensive amount of stuff in it, and it was employee-related with a torch. They get sawn open with skill saws with diamond blades, but usually they just get loaded up and moved to Mexico, box and all. That doesn't happen very often unless you got a lot of money in them, so they'll be okay.
All righty. Any other questions from the commission? Yes, Mr. Elmore.
Commissioner Elmore, I don't know whether these need to be painted on site or not, or if they're just set there as is, but if we stipulated that there needed to be a sign or something painted on it that said provided with your OHV
Definitely.
dollars.
We're more than happy to do partnership logos. You can see the one.
I like that. They're required in our grant.
What they do is like the mini mobile, we'd be able to put up our own signs, information we have there. And we also have our signs in the campground along the trails, and on the bottom of those, we can put partnership logos as well. We do that with the Recreational Trails Program grant with the
But
state of Nevada.
if we fund the containers, you would be willing to put on there that they were provided with OHV dollars?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
No issue
All
there.
right. I saw Commissioner McKay first.
Do you enforce the...
Commissioner McKay, you need to state your name for the record.
Commissioner McKay for the record. Do you enforce Nevada OHV stickers in the Sand Mountain area?
As a recreation planner, I don't. As a law enforcement officer, there's an agreement with the local sheriffs where we can do state enforcement on federal lands. So, and it works the other way as well, where the local law enforcement can do that kind of enforcement on our federal lands. So a reciprocal type of an agreement there. And yes, and that's one of the things our rangers are geared up for, and they have been doing that the last couple of large holidays. We've posted big signs, big sandwich boards, where we provide information, and we've taken the OHV Commission's flyer, the handbill, and we post those up out at our site as well.
Thank you.
All right. Commissioner Giroux.
Commissioner Giroux for the record. Is this going to be a fixed-based operation?
Yes.
Or mobile?
No, these are going to be set in place because they're actually quite heavy. So like I said, they're going to be set up on either side, right here, and then they're going to be stationary.
On concrete pad?
At the moment, on the compacted road base, we're doing our recreation area management plan where we're addressing all kinds of issues in this area. We need to address user parking, day use parking, so all these kind of things that are going to come in the future. When we do that, we're going to incorporate all of this, and whether or not we end up paving the whole area or not, we're not sure what's going to happen yet. But at the moment, it is compacted road base right now, and then they'll be put down in place, like I said, on either side.
Any provisions to not allowing people into the park without registration?
That is something we can entertain. It was something we'd have to run by our field manager. Right now, we don't check the individuals, and you can understand the logistics when these things are all packed up, either inside trailers or on trailers, stacked on top of each other when they come in, because sometimes they're really loaded down, to be able to inspect every single one on the way in. But that is something that we can, say, in the campground, go from camp to camp, because then they're already out and in place.
I know, like in California, the OHV parks, they won't allow you in with your machine unless it's registered. I know me as one of the commissioners trying to really increase our, our participation, could, say it that way.
That's understandable.
I'd be very interested in that.
I would say that that's something that we can sit down and talk with our rangers about. I think mostly what we do right now is when they stop them for another type of citation or violation issue, then they will. Like I said, when they come in and, you might have, 5 or 6 ATVs in a toy hauler like this, to inspect them on the way in, to have them unload them all, that would be a logistic nightmare. But in camp, that would be something where they can make rounds and do camps, and that's something that someone would need to talk with the rangers about.
Okay, I think we'd have support from the board looking for, that extra help there.
All right, so I've got a couple quick questions. Being that you're BLM, It's my understanding, it's not your fault, you get stuck with this. 22% of the grant has got to go to an administration fee?
We're not sure yet. And I sent an issue trying to contact a person at the state office who can help answer that, and he's on vacation till Monday. What happens normally is these would be considered what we call contributing funds. So somebody contributes money to us for a particular project. You know, we guarantee it's used for that project specifically, and we write up an agreement. So that's not an issue there. Our problem is we have what we call indirect cost rates, and that is supposed to be covering the overhead. That's all our, like the building, electricity, for all the staff. That's something that our National Operations Center charges for all our accounts unless they're given a waiver. And in this particular case, it's what I call a pass-through, where money's provided to purchase something and then you're done. It's not an ongoing project. We can request a waiver and say, we don't think it should apply to this because all we're going to do is purchase something. And then if they give it to us, then we don't pay that at all.
Okay, so the point I want to get to is you're asking for $19,425. That 22% is built into that, I'm assuming.
That's part of the overhead.
Right.
Yeah.
So that would bring, that would be a cost reduction of about 4,000, which would bring it down to 15, and then you have to pay prevailing wage. And prevailing wage is relatively expensive.
Well, prevailing wage wouldn't apply to this particular project because it's just purchase.
So if you partnered with, it's Churchill County out there?
Yes.
Who would be using part of this. If you partnered with Churchill County, we wouldn't have to worry about the 22% at all, correct?
Looking at the actual budget line item here, is the purchase of the actual containers are $15,500,
Okay.
and the delivery is $3,000. So the actual purchase of the container is $18,500. The overhead, if they did apply that indirect cost recovery rate, would come out, a part of it out of the overhead, which they have in here, and then the remainder of it, I was talking with our field manager, if they did say, yes, we do have to apply that, would not be coming out of the $19,000, or actually the $18,000 for the materials, $18,500. It would probably have to come out of our end, because then we wouldn't be able to purchase the two containers
Okay.
in this case.
So for the sake of argument, we have limited resources right now. If we decided to, we love the idea, because I'll be honest, I can see a real need for this, and I think it's to the benefit of all of us to get this stuff done. If we turned around and said, we can't give you 19,000, but we can help you buy one container, and then maybe, later on next year when we've got more money.
That would definitely be an option.
What would be our real costs? How much would we have to supply you to get one container at a real number?
Well, half of the 15, so $7,500.
Okay.
And then, I'm not sure on the delivery, they have delivery at $3,000 for two. If they would deliver $1,500 for one, then add $1,500 onto that. So you'd be talking, well, pretty much I would say half of what the total budget of the $19,000.
So somewhere around $9,000?
Yeah.
Okay.
9,500 or so, right.
Yeah, okay.
So that would definitely be an option, would be if you say you can afford one right now, then we can purchase that one and see how it goes. And if we decide we have a need for another one, we can come back a second time.
And just to clarify something, just in case, because again, I'm sort of trying to do the numbers in my head, how many, law enforcement, we've got a budget of $75,000. We have about $200,000 worth of dollars that people want. If we, just for the sake of argument, we gave you $8,500, we came up with $8,500 that was left over from the other things, and we got you there, and it was really $9,500 that you needed, would you be able to get that out of your own budget?
I talked with our field manager this morning, and she said we would definitely entertain that, but my guess is if you said, here's $8,500, you need $1,000, we would take that out of our Sand Mountain operating budget to cover the rest of it.
Fantastic. All right, are there any other questions from the commission? Mr. Lammett?
Only one. Sand Mountain's an $80 a year fee area and $20 a day, is that true?
$90 for an annual and $40 for a week.
But if you're there for a day, it's $40?
At the moment. We're going to be addressing that. All of the OHV recreation areas like Glamis, Dumont Dunes, the logistics of trying to do a daily where you're trying to sell a whole bunch of annuals and weeklies, and you've got a daily, no guarantee that person's leaving and someone else is coming back in, whether a person buys a week or a
I
daily and
was
stays.
just trying to determine that it's truly a revenue area, and you do have some revenues at that
Yes,
location.
and a
That's
lot of
fine.
it is the operating costs overall. Our revenues have dropped considerably, and that's one of the issues. We'd like to fund a lot of this, be self-funding itself. 6 years ago, the site brought in close to $280,000. Last couple of years, we barely broke $150,000, and this goes for salary, the solid waste, the sewage pumping, pretty much wipes that out, just the basic cost there. But we are entertaining, because we're doing our resource management plan right now, we'll be doing a business plan as well as a recreation area management plan, and we're going to be trying to come up with a way where we can do non-motorized use as well as daily use. So if we can work it out.
Terrific. One last question, because we do need to get moving along here. Mr. Elmore?
Commissioner Elmore, just out of blatant curiosity, how many annual visitations, recreation?
Our estimate's between 50 to 70,000 a year.
Great.
It's approximately 60 to 65% of that from California.
All right. Any more quick questions? Because we do need to get moving along, guys. We only have until 4:30.
Just two quick ones. Number one, are these new units or refurbs?
These are brand-new units that are constructed, yes.
And where are they coming from?
Sacramento.
Okay.
Is there a supplier in the state?
For this type of a unit, the heavy-duty unit, they didn't find one. They did look. We can continue looking. We do have to go out to bid. So if somebody else comes up, in Nevada that has something comparable, what we do is we have to list our standards, what we want, and then it's open to public bidding.
There's a mobile mini vendor in Las Vegas. It's on Cheyenne and Nellis Boulevard.
That's not a problem.
All right. Okay. Any other questions? Sir, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And now next up is Mesquite. And then right after that, we have Lincoln County Sheriff's Department. Mesquite, you're coming in to us from Vegas?
I am.
All right, sir. Please state your name and any other pertinent information for the record, and go right ahead.
Okay. Good afternoon, Chair and Commissioners. Chief Tanner, Mesquite Police Department. To my right is Sergeant Rob Stepp from Mesquite Police Department. And we're looking for the extra points for a quick presentation, so I'll be quick.
Right, good.
Okay, the city currently offers 36.3 miles of existing named trails and 16.7 miles of unnamed built trails in the city of Mesquite. We were reached out to by, I think, some of your staff or people asking how many trails we had, if we had any, and we have several trails. I have a map that I think she has handed out that's listed with all the dotted areas. There's several trail systems all throughout our city. And at the end, I'll talk about a little bit. We have an ordinance. I know some other agencies have it too, where you can travel without a trailer to get to your destination, to get to those trails outside the city of Mesquite. It might be in other areas, Department of Wildlife and BLM, so on. So we allow people to travel on our streets on certain roadways. Besides 4 of them, they can just cross those roadways. But there's not a day that goes by I don't see several OHVs in the city of Mesquite driving when I'm going to and from work and to my meetings. I've never not crossed paths with OHVs every day, all day. OHVs access National Park Service and BLM trails via the Mesquite Trail System. Mesquite residents do not have to trailer the OHVs, like I said, in order to access these off-road recreation areas. Residents use their OHVs, travel throughout our city to get to different locations during events during the year. There's 3 major off-road events. They're held each year. An additional 4 events are in the planning stages. We just approved 2 of them. Eureka just basically traded the city land. They acquired land from the city, another 1.5 acres, and they just got signed off on a permit to open a venture park and BMX track to bring OHV users to Mesquite year-round. This just opened, and I think next week's the opening of it. Like I said, there's 53 miles of trails within the city. Police-owned OHV is a necessity. Personal OHVs have been used in the past. We have a couple, of course, guys have them at home and they bring them out. We do own one. We own just an ATV, no OHVs. ATVs are not very safe. We've had some wrecks on them and problems where they've got stuck, and then you only can put 1 person on them, safety-wise. We've recovered several stolen vehicles in OHVs and ATVs on the river. which is our side of the river, and then Bunkerville has the other side, which we patrol both areas when we're doing cases anywhere basically in Clark County. So we've recovered 12 OHVs and ATVs using trucks, and I was in one of the pickups that we popped all 4 tires the time we got out from the river. Search for missing persons, that's a constant battle between us and Lincoln County. I've had conversations with Sheriff Lee, and we constantly take their missing reports until they arrive because of the distance. We've had a couple pass away. We've had 2 OHV wrecks in the last 2 years where they wrecked and were deceased at scene, and we had to locate those. Took quite some time. We had to use a helicopter from Metro because we didn't have the equipment or resources to get out to the locations. We've searched for downed planes, same thing, using binoculars and trying to get there and using personal ATVs. Recovery of deceased persons I already spoke of. Like I said, the biggest thing is we have a partnership with Lincoln County. We have wrecks and different things on dirt roads off of our dump road that's Lincoln County owned. Then we end up following up on those investigations and investigating them per their request. Most importantly, I wanted to add the city ordinance that we came out with. A lot of people ask for in the city, and it's a hot topic constantly because every time we have an event in town, it seems like people don't listen very well. They do well for a while, and then they're upset because they're stopped. But we have more and more. The more events have came, I've seen an increase. I can't even tell you how much on OHVs on the roadways and in our trail system. And we do have people get lost because they're not from our area. They get outside a ways and it gets dark and they get lost and they start calling dispatch and we try to figure out how to get them in. So an OHV would be vital to our organization. I did a revised grant request. You probably don't have it in front of you because we were still working on the revised one because we were contacting and asked if we can spend less. Originally we asked for the mid-grade OHV. It had to be a 4-seater because we thought of several incidents where it would take more than one officer safety-wise to contact or help someone that's missing so they can pay attention where they're driving and have someone else more of a spotter. And so we did ask for the 4-seat Razor, and we knocked it down to the smallest one they sell. I think it's a Razor 800. And anyway, so we knocked that down from $23,000 to $19,000, and I have that in front of me here. So that's our request. It is important to us. Also, of course, I put the doors on it. That's part of it, and that was about it in the top. So I'll take any questions you might have.
All righty. Do we have any questions from the commission? I'm looking around. Commissioner Baker.
I have one question. In the grant application, you talk about the timing that you were going to use this, and it's on a regular basis from May 1 through September 5th, and I'm just wondering why you're limiting it to the summer months.
We have the most activity around July 4th in the summer months on events. I wasn't only limited to that. I just didn't want to put on paper that it depends on our staffing. I talked to the patrol shifts, and if they have their maximum staffing, if everyone's there, we said maybe one of the guys on each shift can, and during the other months, they can go out and do enforcement. We get at least one complaint a week, people using OHVs driving on our walkway paths that a lot of our senior community use to walk in the morning. And that's at least once a week we get complaints, so it'd be good for that purpose, and also registration stickers, and then driving recklessly. We did have a guy wreck this last year, and he ended up being disabled over the wreck on the walkway path. So I said those months because our school officers, we were going to designate them to use them in the summer months on a frequent basis, more so than during the year, and then also use them on the events like you saw. But the idea is to use them anytime we have complaints, and more so than just what was listed here. But I didn't want to put something on paper and not be able to hold to that. But our plans are to allow a patrol officer, if they have all their people on the shift, no one's called in sick or at training or off on any kind of medical issue, that they would allow one of their persons to take that machine out and do enforcement in those areas. But summer months are more active and busy for us.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Giroux?
Commissioner Giroux for the record. Do you have, obviously you're going to flag this as a police vehicle, and my question would be, would the OHV Commission be able to be tagged along as far as a provided by?
Of course, yeah. We planned on the markings in the grant we wrote that we would, of course, write where it came from, where it was funded, and then, yeah, they can do a ride-along or whatever they like anytime they'd like to.
Okay, and is there any problem with dealing with a Nevada dealership, trying to keep our dollars in Nevada? I see the bid is for a Utah dealership.
No, not at all. The time restraints we had, when we found out about it, I think we had 2 weeks before, we did both areas. There's actually a Mesquite Motor one too that's in there, but no, I have full intention. We only purchase from Nevada, and we actually make our officers move to Nevada to work here. So I'm a strong proponent of you need to live and buy things in Nevada.
Thank you very much.
That was just a bid.
All right, Mr. Lambert?
Commissioner Lambert, for the record, I want to thank Mesquite for their participation in the OHV process and their strong support of OHV in general and being a leader in using 490 to build tourism and jobs. And I thank you. I have very few questions in regard to your commitment. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Commissioner Richardson?
Commissioner Richardson, sir. Just a quick question. Why a Razor as opposed to a lower model?
You know, safety-wise, I've driven all three. I'm an owner of some, and I've looked at and done studies, read online, talked to people. I had a friend that owned a dealership, and safety-wise, I've seen a lot of wrecks over my time. I'm from Vegas originally, and when it was all desert on Charleston, I've just seen a lot of wrecks and different things, and I think that's the safest model. I didn't personally own one, but I plan to in the future, and I just think they're the safest with the roofs, metal doors, the way they're built, and the higher ones. I've been on some desks recently. And anyway, and I just think that's the safest model. Stays lowest to the ground, and a bunch of other reasons. Just the cage equipment, so guys don't get injured. Because we have wrecked ATVs, like I said, with injuries.
All right. Is there any other quick questions? All right. Again, I would like to reiterate from Commissioner Lambert, thank you, because your area has been a great example, and I'm glad to see that you're working in coordination with Lincoln County, because obviously the more equipment we can put out there that's used for the benefit of more than one county, obviously that's a bigger bang for our dollars. I have one quick question on enforcement. Will you be using this Razor for enforcement, enforcement of the OHV sticker, and have you been doing any enforcement up till now?
Yes, we've been fairly lax on as far as the city when they brought all the events here. We didn't want everyone to think we're going to hammer the events that come in town. I'm for, it's a rural area, as Lincoln County's talked about. I think they should be able to drive them in certain areas as long as they follow the rules and cross the right roads and not drive them on our main roads. So the answer to the enforcement is yes, we do an enforcement. We're looking for the reckless driver, that kind of thing. We're not looking for guys with really small violations, but the sticker is something we will enforce, absolutely.
Terrific. I have one question, Commissioner Lee.
Just a quick question, Chief Tanner. Are you guys also doing VIN inspections for OHVs?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I got an email. I was asking how many we did because it feels like we've done hundreds of them. And we have people come in constantly in the PD. I don't have the number for you. I asked for it and I didn't get it because I guess we don't have a way to keep statistical charts on that because we have a printed paper our officers fill out for anyone that comes in the PD. And I guess we didn't think ahead to keep statistics, but the majority of our residents, and I think you guys know this, a lot of them have OHVs and ATVs. It's amazing how many there are in our city.
That's
but I don't have a number for you.
One other thing too, would you be opposed to, if you are awarded this grant, to do some kind of a press release in your area in reference to OHV enforcement and the equipment that you receive from the OHV Commission?
Absolutely. I do one every 3 to 4 months. Every year I have it in my calendar to basically educate the public where they can ride them, where they can get a map. In fact, we just blew up a large map for this off-road weekend in 2 weeks that we're going to have a booth just to show where you can ride them. And we're having our volunteers man that for 3 days, the Friday, Saturday, and I think half a Sunday, to show where you can ride them in our town and also a map they can take with them. So, yes, we do releases all the time, just so they know to be safe on them and where they can ride them.
Thank you.
All righty, seeing no other questions, I thank you, sir, and again, go with our appreciation, and we'll be talking about you tomorrow. All right.
Thank you.
Lincoln County, you're up. Please state name and relevant information for the record.
Yeah, my name is Ken Dixon. I'm with Lincoln County Sheriff's Search and Rescue Division. I assume that everybody has read the equipment justification that we put in. We're looking for 2 ATVs with snow tracks. We have a number of hunting areas in our county. Probably 90% of the hunters that come into our county are from the Las Vegas area. Excuse me. We currently have 1 OHV with demountable snow tracks. And as you all know, the hunting season is something that sometimes you get some really deep snow out there, and a lot of times the existing ATVs can't handle those areas. We need the snow tracks in order to enable ourselves to both patrol in the wintertime, and we need them to come off because obviously we can't enforce any OHV regulations if we don't have the ATVs to do it. Right now, our ATVs are all personal equipment, and it's a great liability to the Sheriff's Department to have personal vehicles out there. I know the city of Mesquite is facing the same thing. If we put people out there on ATVs and they're using their personal equipment, it opens up a big liability for the county. Lincoln County has about 11,000 square miles of area, and right now we have very limited resources to patrol those. If you look at the equipment justification, we have 270 miles of the only OHV trail in the country through the Lincoln County Land Act that was authorized by Congress.
All righty, do we have any questions? Okay, if you could address some of the oh, I'm sorry, I apologize, Sheriff Lee.
I just was going to disclose that I'm the sheriff of Lincoln County, so I just, I'll pretty much stay out of this one, so.
Okay,
thank you.
Yeah, you didn't say that, Mr. Dixon. All right.
Yeah, thank you, Sheriff, for reminding me who you are.
All right, just the same usual questions. You could address, will we be able to, obviously you'd be required to have our logo on there saying it's, the machinery is provided by the commission. Would you be doing enforcement of stickers, and would you be doing VIN checks?
That's one of the reasons that we are looking for on the Silver State Trail, because of the notoriety, or I shouldn't say the publicity, not necessarily the notoriety. The publicity it receives through BLM. It is actually a BLM sponsored event that we got through the Land Act, and it's quite well known and it's well mapped. We have a lot of participation from the OHV community that right now, to be honest with you, and I'm sure the sheriff will agree with me, that we can't do a justification as far as the decal work is concerned. BLM provides 1 law enforcement officer for the whole county, through the whole district. If we could get some more equipment out there, then, and I can't speak for the sheriff on dispersing personnel, but, we'll do the best we can with what we can get. One of the reasons that we need some more ATVs out there is that even if we have the 1 ATV currently, but it's a danger to put 1 ATV out there with 1 officer on it. It's dangerous for the officer. It's also, if you have an accident, we're a long ways from anybody out there. It can be 50 miles to the closest habitation. So we want to do this for officer safety as well as enforcement. And we have a lot of major OHV events in the county, both motorcycle and OHV and dune buggy, or I shouldn't say dune buggy, off-road buggy and truck buggy. So we really want to stress the officer safety involved in getting some additional ATVs, as well as the enforcement of the OHV regulations and the decals. Currently, as you all know, I'm sure, only person that can do a VIN number is a sworn officer and/or a dealer. So we do our share of those when we can.
All right, terrific. Thank you, Mr. Dixon. I'm seeing no other questions. All right, thank you, sir. I appreciate it. All right, we're going to take about a minute to do a little bit of shuffling. Sheriff Lee is going to handle the next three applicants, which will be the Dunes and Trails BLM, Friends of Nevada Wilderness, and the City of Carson, their Pleasant Hills project. So we're just going to do a little bit of shuffling around, and then we'll be ready to get going. I would like to break for lunch after the next three presentations, which will bring us to about probably 12:30. Kathy, will we have lunch here by then? Okay, terrific. All right, let me just shuffle some things around, and I will be handing over the gavel to Commissioner Lee. This is signed.
Did it answer your question?
Spreadsheet? It's in the same order. Which spreadsheet gives you a little bit more detail? Right? You're to rock and roll? Call it to order when you're ready, sir. Benefit of the commissioners, everybody has their spreadsheet in their package. That gives a little bit more detail. The way things are broken up is that law enforcement is all in one group, signage is all in one group, and onward. So we tried to group them together to make it easier for you guys. All right, Commissioner Lee, you have now got the chair.
Great. Okay, we will go with the grant on the Dunes and Trails Club for the BLM. Go ahead and introduce yourself, your name, and who you work for, please.
I'm Roger Walkemeyer, president of Dunes and Trails ATV Club, and I live in Las Vegas. The Dunes and Trails ATV Club exists for presenting rides on public lands. We do rides all over the state, and we do a lot down in the Gold Butte area. The project we have proposed is to partner with the Bureau of Land Management and work on the Gold Butte Backcountry Byway and replace the existing Carsonite signs and posts along that area. The actual trail itself is 62 miles long, and the BLM requests markers every mile with additional markers to be placed on certain areas where people get lost, get confused, and can't find their way back. And this is a very notable part of the trail system, as there are a lot of world-renowned scenic areas. People come from everywhere in the world to come and see some of the items that are in that area for photography, scenery, and riding. What we propose in the grant is to purchase equipment and materials to replace all the markers, put all brand new ones in, and the tools to accomplish this. The part of the expenses is fuel and operating. It is a 220-mile round trip from the center of, we just picked the center of Las Vegas, and Matt requested it to Gold Butte, and you're looking at a 220-mile round trip to be hauling equipment back and forth. And so we're covering those costs and expenses on those line items. We're hoping to have enough participation to accomplish this in just a couple of weekends with a significant turnout of volunteers. Being that we are a nonprofit without a large budget, we are putting in for also an advance reimbursement to cover the costs of materials that have to be expended, have to be ordered before anything is accomplished. At that point, I have promised myself to be as quick and brief as possible. You can see the maps, I hope you can, see the maps that I have up that show the area of concern. And at this point, I would entertain any questions.
All right, we don't see the maps. Was he going to have them on here, or? Yeah, we can't see the
I
maps
don't-
up here, though we do have some copies that are a little bit hard to read, but we do have copies here attached to your grant, but we cannot see those.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
maybe we
wasn't
can get
sure.
those for tomorrow, so.
I don't know, can you see this?
No, we can't.
Can you? Oh, okay. So much for
Oh, yeah, we actually, we can see it a little bit better behind us, but,
Oh,
okay.
okay.
Okay, questions, Commissioner Baker?
I have a question regarding your budget in that you're talking about volunteers, and I can understand some money for some administration fees for the nonprofit, but you have over half your budget in salary. Can you explain that?
I have never filled out a grant request before, and so I plugged in the number of hours we were figuring was going to have to be included to accomplish the deed, and I put that in the request. There will have to be some hours paid, but we're hoping to get almost all the hours donated.
So of the $15,000 you're asking in salary, who gets that money?
That would be going to the club, or we would donate it back to,
So can you clarify?
donate it back to the commission.
If we funded the material and perhaps the mileage reimbursement, I mean, how much do you actually need administrative to make this happen?
Okay, the budget and miles are, you're looking at about 4,972 for fuel to get things back and forth from Vegas.
That's fair.
And then equipment, the actual hard equipment will be approximately $5,023.60. That will vary. We were not able to get shipping costs exact, so that will be pretty close. And then operating expenses for equipment, fuel, water, traffic cones, things like that, you'd be looking at another $1,601.16.
I really didn't have a concern with any of the other items. I just didn't understand with
okay.
volunteers how you could ask for $15,000 in salary for 2 weekends to administer the volunteers. That seems extremely excessive, in my opinion.
Thank you. Commissioner Jackson, did you have something?
All right, I've got a couple of quick housekeeping questions. How are you set up with the state? Are you a nonprofit, or are you a club? How is your organization organized?
Our club is a nonprofit.
It's a,
Yes.
Do you know what category it is? Is it 503?
I don't. It just comes back from the Secretary of State as a nonprofit.
Okay. Do you have any Are there any paid people in your club? I mean, is there anybody paid?
No,
Nobody's paid?
it's all volunteer.
All volunteer, good, good. Let's see. All right, and what kind of projects has your club done in the past?
We've done things for the BLM as far as GPS monitoring in the Gold Butte area.
Right.
And some work with the Silver State Trails. Dunes and Trails years ago was preeminent party in getting the Silver State Trails organized and constructed, and a great deal of volunteer effort went into the construction of the Silver State Trail and the camping area just above Caliente.
Fantastic. And again, I applaud your efforts in getting the BLM involved, because that's exactly the kind of project that we want to see. We want to see BLM's involvement in this. What part will BLM be playing? I mean, are they going to do some of the organization for you? Are they going to provide vehicles? Or are they going to do any sort of active participation?
The participation we had requested and they had provided was that they would come by and supervise, direct, make sure that we were complying with all the tortoise regulations, all the safety and the BLM issues, and make sure that we properly instructed all of the individuals that were going to be taking part in this in the BLM requirements, safety, and their positioning of the markers. They must be positioned and marked in a specific manner. They'd be working with us on that.
All right, terrific. I think this is a terrific project. I mean, I really like it. I like the fact that you're working hard with BLM, and I like the fact that you're all volunteers. With that, I have no more questions.
Okay, Commissioner Lambert, did you have something? No, no question. Anybody else have a question? Did we get, Commissioner Baker, did you get your question answered? Would you like to?
I guess
Your mic's not on.
if we didn't fund the salary and funded everything else, would this project still go through?
It probably would, yes. We will need a little bit for administration out of that, but we could proceed with a little negotiation on that. We would only need a small percentage.
Thank
We
you.
were hoping to use part of that for a couple of other projects.
Got my question answered.
I said that wrong. I will.
Okay.
If I may interject here just a moment, this is Ken Dixon with the Lincoln County Search and Rescue again. I'm familiar with Dunes and Trails. These guys were a great help to everybody when it concerned the Silver State Trails thing. They spent a lot of time helping map out and lay out that trail. Probably the Silver State Trail would not be in existence if the Dunes and Trails had not participated in this and the administrative end of it. And they were a very viable organization. And thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Elmore, did you have something?
This is Commissioner Elmore for the record. Just one quick question on the grant, on your grant application, under land manager's review and approval, in parentheses it says to be attached on grant acceptance, but I see a letter from the BLM field manager along with Mr. Linares, so I would assume that these are in fact those documents and that you are actively working with the BLM on this?
That is correct. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just would like to, Commissioner McKay, for the record, echo Commissioner Baker's comments. I appreciate the work you've done down there. I think if we could fund the signs and the tool and some gas money and that type of stuff, it'd be a great project, just being that we have a finite amount of resources amongst the state.
Perfect, thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, real quick. Jim
ahead.
Richardson, Commission. Just in my math, you got about 20,000 in workers. Have you solicited any other nonprofits, Boy Scouts, Eagle Projects, that type of thing, to help you with this at all?
We have talked to a few other organizations. We haven't gotten any commitments on it yet. And we are hoping that that's one reason we've put together multiple installation kits, supplies and equipment to do multiple installations at the same time. We're hoping to be able to get three crews going at the same time. But it's going to depend. We've had a lot of conversations, but we have not had commitments.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Commissioners,
Yes.
I'm Elise McAllister with Partners in Conservation. We will commit to helping Dunes and Trails with this project. We can help them find some local Boy Scouts. We can help with administration, whatever it takes.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. Any other questions before, okay? All right, let's move on. Thank you very much for your presentation. Next, we'll have the Friends of Nevada Wilderness, the trail signage project.
Chair?
Yes.
Commissioner Jackson, for the record. I am an active member of the Nevada Friends of Nevada Wilderness. I have no financial interest. I am a blue helmet, which means that they got me to work a lot more than the average. But that's about it. So, so thanks. Please bear that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Go ahead and introduce yourself to us.
All right, I am Renee Aldrich with Friends of Nevada Wilderness, and this is Pat Bruce. We have actually 3 proposals today, and so in the interest of saving time, all 3 proposals.
Yes, Ms. Jackson. We have broken the proposals out into signage and different areas. The reason it was done that way is so that we can group them together. So if you could deal with just the signage issue now, and you'll have 5 minutes to talk to you about the other ones.
Right, and that's what I was just about to explain. We only put together one PowerPoint presentation, though, kind of encompassing the whole theme of our project, which is same throughout the 3 proposals. So we'll focus on signage now, and we'll come back and talk about the OHVs and address those questions later.
If I could, I would extend the offer of partnering with Dunes and Trails on the Gold Butte project. Friends of Nevada Wilderness has been active in Gold Butte and would be happy to assist those folks.
For signs and stickers, we have a proposal of $4,500. The purpose of this project is to help vehicle users enjoy backcountry experience and support riders with good signage, noting places of interest, places to park, and delineate travel. And this is in, for 2014, we're focusing our signage and stickers in the Black Rock NCA in northwestern Nevada with the BLM up there. And to help riders navigate backcountry with less confusion. And then we'll talk about this more later, but to obtain OHVs to make our projects more effective and efficient in both time and expense. Addressing the needs. With decreasing agency budgets, agency personnel is less likely and less able to get out into the field. We have an established nonprofit with a lot of volunteers who come out and help us with these projects. It's a great way to introduce people to the NCA. Inadequate signage can lead to disturbances to natural resources and important wildlife habitat, and can lower the quality of recreational experiences for all users. OHVs can help us get volunteers and materials out to hard-reach backcountry settings, and we can do so in a more timely manner if we get those. Why give your money to Friends of Nevada Wilderness? We have nationally recognized stewardship programs with over 8 years of experience. We maintain strong agency relationships with all 4 federal agencies that manage public land in Nevada. We have the infrastructure in place to make your money work immediately and effectively. We can start this program as soon as the area is dry and it's safe to get out there. We are also able to provide public relations, press releases, and social media to highlight the accomplishments being done with your monies. And we will shine a positive light on how users of all interests are working together to enhance Nevada's backcountry experience. Just so you get an idea, we have done projects like this in the past. Here are some examples of signage we've put up in the NCA in 2013, a directional sign, some High Rock North Gate signs, and just directing people how, which roads lead to where. In addition, points of interest signs, the Upper High Rock Canyon Trail near Stevens Camp. We have partnered with OHV groups in the past, and we're very proud of that. We are very proud of trying to get all the user groups together to come out on our projects. We have partnered with the Hills Angels 4x4 Club to maintain roads and habitat, and this is off the Garson Road in the Carson Ranger District. We've partnered with OHV groups from Las Vegas and Mesquite over 2 National Public Lands Days. And we had a great partnership with the Northern Nevada Outdoor Recreation Association and the Northern Nevada ATV Association when working in the pine forest. Just a few examples. With this project, we expect to have more clearly delineated designates of routes of travel in the Black Rock NCA. We are going to be promoting the responsible use of motorized recreation. Riders will be safer and more informed while exploring backcountry areas.